Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Naruto hated it. They all had the same look in their eyes. As he walked towards the Hokage tower to speak to Hiruzen Ojiazan. The old fart had requested to speak to him prior to him meeting with his team for their first round of mission. That wasn't what was bothering Naruto though, actually he loved his conversations with the Hokage, he made him feel special. What was currently making his walk uncomfortable was the eyes of the civilians of Konoha. Each new street that he entered brought him closer to the Hokage tower but would replace the old set of eyes with new ones. He noticed the same look on almost everyone's faces. He had no other word to describe it other than hate and disgust. They looked at him as though he was a monster. For 15 years of his life, he lived with this. He didn't believe anyone could get used to this open hate. His eyes caught the staring eyes of a young woman working in a nearby shop. When her eyes first met his, her face turned red and she stared at him, mouth slightly agape, just like Ino-chan and Sakura-chan did to him yesterday. He smiled at her, his best forced friendly smile he could muster. He watched as her face turned a deeper shade of red before she turned her back away from him and practically ran to the back of her shop away from his eyes. He sighed. They all hate me. But once I become Hokage they will be forced to recognize me. Forced to say that Uzumaki Naruto is the best. His usual motivating speech didn't move him as much as it had for the past 15 years, he had that small thought at the back of his mind that nothing would change even then. Shaking his head, he plastered his fake smile on, holding his head high and tried to avoid making eye contact with anyone else. Oi, Naruto, is that you? He recognized the voice's owner as Kiba Inuzuka. Looking ahead he saw Kiba, Hinata Hyuga and Shino Aburame headed his direction. Naruto raised his hand waving at them as the group converged on him, he greeted them. Hey Kiba, Hinata, Shino, Naruto said, his fake smile not dropping from his face. Yo, I told you Shino it was him. Dang Naruto, new threads, pretty sick, you actually look like a shinobi now, I never thought you would get rid of your orange jumpsuit. This brought a genuine chuckle from the blonde. Thanks Kiba. Yeah, my sensei said I needed a new outfit so Sakura and Ino dressed me up in this. Naruto looked at Kiba. The boy looked the same as he did 2 days ago when they got their team assignments. Hinata had a face so red Naruto thought she would pass out any moment, which wouldn't be out of character for her. She was pushing the index finger of both her hands together and avoiding eye contact with him like the girl at the shop moments ago. Naruto had no idea how she managed to not hurt herself. It seemed like whenever he was around the girl, she managed to hit the ground some way somehow. Shino was harder to read because of his detached demeanor and his eyes were always covered by shades. He had no idea what the bug user was thinking ever. So, I am assuming you passed your follow-up exam as well? Kiba asked. Yeah, how did you know that? Naruto asked, genuinely confused. Kiba laughed at him. Dumbass. Every new team has to do a follow-up exam with their new Jonin instructor. My team's exam consisted mainly of tracking Kurenai-sensei all across the village. She said that Team 8 was specifically designed for tracking, Team 10 for reconnaissance, Team 11 was an assault team, and then there was your team. She didn't even know why you three were brought together. Kiba said, his laughter growing. Even after becoming a shinobi you're still useless Naruto. Impressive. Naruto squeezed his fist tightly. He wasn't in the mood for this. Had Kiba just stopped him to make fun of him? Whatever Kiba. Hey Hinata, are you doing alright? Your face is a little too red. Naruto looked at Hinata. Red was an understatement, the girl was basically turning purple. Each time she'd momentarily glance at him then look him up and down, her face darkened. He reached his hand out and touched her forehead. Geez Hinata-chan, you're burning up. Are you Oka? Before he could finish, Hinata let out an eep sound and fainted. Shino caught her and Kiba growled, baring his toothy fangs at Naruto, who took a small step back. She was okay till you touched her, Naruto. Kiba shouted at him. I was just trying to help. I'm sore. Just get out of here, man. Now I have to carry her until she wakes up. Useless piece of shit. Kiba growled at Naruto before scooping Hinata gently in his arms and walking away. Shino, let's go. Kiba shouted over his shoulders. As Shino was walking away, he placed a hand on Naruto's shoulders. Naruto had a somber look on his face and the Aburame knew he was taking things to heart. It's not your fault, Naruto-san. Kiba just gets like that sometimes, don't take it personally. Shino said plainly before leaving, the blonde staring at the three figures walking away. Well, it sure feels like it. Naruto. Kiba growled to himself as he walked down the road, Shino hot on his heels. He looked down compassionately at Hinata. Her soft, beautiful face caused his heart to skip. He took in her scent. She smelt so good to the boy, like a light floral scent with a hint of sweet pomegranate and peach. Kiba took another whiff, his blood rushed hot. She had a musty smell coming from her as well. He could feel his excitement growing at his second head down south. He recognized that smell as a woman entering heat. Growling to himself, Kiba tried to not focus on the smell of Hinata's excitement or the fact that the smell hadn't come up till their run-in with Naruto. He gripped her tighter and tried to ignore that musty sweet smell, otherwise he'd go crazy. Thankfully, the rest of his brisk walk to the Hokage's tower was uneventful. Naruto was no longer in the mood for games. He decided to just barge into the Hokage's office as he usually did, ignoring the secretary that always tried to stop him when he did. Hey Hokage Ojiazan. Naruto gave the man a small smile, grabbing an apple off his desk and sitting down at a chair across from the Hokage's desk, throwing his legs on the desk. He took a bite and leaned back in his chair. The Hokage just chuckled at his new genin. Taking a long inhale of the pipe hanging out of his mouth, letting the smoke fill his lungs before blowing a big puff directly in the young teenager's face. This caused Naruto to choke on the smoke and he swatted the smoke from in front of his face. Earning an audible chuckle from the Hokage. Naruto sent him a playful glare. You know smoking will kill you, old man. Naruto stated. Well, hopefully it kicks in soon, so I no longer have to deal with disrespectful genin like you. The Hokage shot back at the boy. In turn, Naruto just gave him a cheeky grin. You would be so sad in heaven without me, old man. Naruto said confidently. The old man just smiled at the boy. He was not wrong. So, why'd you call me here today? Not that I don't love talking to you, old man, but I am supposed to meet with my team in about an hour. Naruto said, glancing at the clock in the Hokage's office. Do I need a reason to see my favorite new genin? This made Naruto give the old man a suspicious look. Every time the old man said something like that, he was trying to butter Naruto up for something. The Hokage chuckled at the look Naruto was giving him. Okay. I spoke to Kakashi, he came and gave me the report on your new team. Congratulations on officially becoming genin. As a congratulations, I have some gifts for you. But before I give them to you, tell me what you know about the past Hokage. Aw man, what is this, a pop quiz? I'm not an academy student anymore. Naruto whined. The Hokage used to make him come and study in his office occasionally after he'd get in trouble from pranks, so he was used to quizzes from the old man, which were always harder and more complicated than the ones Iruka gave. This is not a quiz, Naruto, as in it won't be graded, but Kakashi did say he was going to have you reading more as part of your training, and we spoke about a few other things, which is why I am asking you this. Please just answer. No games. The Hokage said in a serious tone. Naruto straightened up, taking his feet off the desk as he thought. He knew this answer at least. He looked at the Hokage monument as he answered in order of the faces on the mountain. Well, there is the first Hokage. His name was Hashirama Senju. He was the man. He was special because he had a wood release or something that is no longer around. And oh yeah, he made the forest all around Konoha supposedly. Then there was the second Hokage, which was Hashirama brother Tobirama Senju. He was well known for his water release, and he created a whole bunch of forbidden jutsu. Also, he was your sensei. Sheesh, that means you're like really old. Naruto said, teasing the Hokage. The Hokage had a tick mark appear on his forehead but ignored his annoyance and told Naruto to continue. Then there is Yuhirazan Sarutobi. Your clan are cousins of the Senju, which are an instinct clan now, I think. And you're pretty cool, I guess. Naruto said, trying to act aloof. You are known as the professor of shinobi, knowing tons of jutsu, yet refusing to teach me any. Naruto muttered under his breath, which caused the old man to smile slightly. You led Konoha during the second and third shinobi wars, which according to Iruka sensei was the main reason you were recommissioned to the Hokage role after the death of the fourth Hokage, and you're my favorite Hokage. Naruto said, blushing as he muttered the last sentence slowly. looking away from the Hokage who just smiled at him. He wouldn't tease the boy about it right now at least. A sad feeling washed over the Hokage. Hopefully I am still your favorite Hokage after this, Naruto-kun. Please continue, Naruto, you're doing great. Then there was the fourth Hokage. He was wildly regarded as the youngest Hokage. Well, after you, but you don't count since the second commissioned you during the middle of a war, whereas the fourth was selected in peaceful times and not under short time restraints. He was known as the fastest shinobi in history because he could teleport or something like that. He fought and saved the village against the Nine Tails attack single-handedly and was awarded the highest honor of valor for it, after his death. Naruto said, wrapping up his summary. He didn't believe he forgot anything major, but he was never really good at book stuff like this. Yes, Naruto, very good. The fourth Hokage was a very talented shinobi, the most talented I had ever seen. I knew he had the potential to be Hokage when he was just 7 years old. Do you remember his wife? Naruto thought for a second, then he remembered that during that lesson he had skipped school that day. Blushing, Naruto just decided to shake his head no. Hiruzen nodded before he spoke, looking Naruto in his eyes as he spoke. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto's face visibly looked shocked at the shared surname between him and the fourth Hokage's wife. She was the descendant of the sole survivor of the Uzumaki clan, Mito Uzumaki, who married the first Hokage. Mito sought refuge here in Konoha after her village was destroyed. Kushina is here descendant, which makes me and you cousin, family if not very distant and unblood related. Hiruzen said, smiling brightly at the boy. Naruto had tears building up in his eyes. The Hokage continued. This is why I called you here today. You technically are, also probably more closely related to the Senju than the Sarutobi clan, but I recognize you as family, Naruto. The Senju clan is not extinct, there is one more, my student Tsunade Senju. You really need to study more and increase your knowledge, like Kakashi said. But Naruto, when you were younger, I told you your parents died turning the Nine Tails attack. Mizuki already told you that the Nine Tails was sealed within you, which is true. But there is more to the story of that night than even Mizuki had shared. Naruto was staring at the Hokage, his head was spinning, he couldn't get past the fact that he actually had living family, and it was the Hokage. He watched his distant relative sigh heavily. Naruto, I hope you forgive me for not telling you sooner. I am human, and although I am known as the professor of shinobi, even, I make mistakes. I owe you an apology, Naruto. Your parents did in fact die fighting the nine-tailed fox. They were the heroes of that night. Hiruzen took a package off his desk, placing it in front of Naruto. Your sensei Kakashi was very close to both your parents. He came in my office shortly after you, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha passed your follow-on exam. He was very adamant about me sharing this information with you and is the sole reason for me seeing the error in my judgment. The packet I just handed you are the shinobi profiles of both of your parents. Now before you read them, your parents were S-class shinobi. With that, I cannot let you take these packets outside of this building, but I will allow you to take their pictures if you'd like. Tears were fallen now. Naruto looked from the Hokage to the two packets in front of him. His breath hitched as he reached a shaking hand towards the packets. He picked up one of the plain vanilla-colored folders. He had to use his other arm to hold his right wrist because he was shaking so much. He picked up a folder. Placing it gently in his lap as though if he was rougher it shatter like glass. Taking a steady inhale, he opened it. Attached to the top of the first page was a picture of a beautiful-looking girl who was in her early teens at the time of the picture. He read the bold print at the top of the page and his breath caught in his throat and he let out an audible choke. The title of the first page read, Shinobi Profile for Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. His eyes shot up to the Hokage, who had a sad look in his eyes. He turned back to the page, reading over it quickly. He had never read so fast in his life. He flipped the page, reading the next one, then the next one, and so on so forth. By the time he got to information on her early 20s, a few pages of her packet had teardrops on them. His breath hitched on the 10th page of the packet. It was a marriage certificate. The two names of the shinobi married, the picture of two of them smiling together was pinned to the top right of the marriage certificate. What made Naruto breath hitch and his heart race was the name of his mother's husband, Minato Namikaze. In the picture, Minato, who had blonde hair and blue eyes much like his. He was smiling brightly holding a pregnant Kushina Uzumaki, whose smile matched his as she had her arms holding her pregnant stomach protectively and lovingly. Naruto was no rocket scientist, but even he could put two and two together. These were his parents. Looking up at the Hokage with tears in his eyes, you knew. He felt angry, betrayed, sad, happy, and twice as lonely as he had felt previously. The Hokage shamefully put his head down, not meeting Naruto's eyes. Yes, I'm sorry, Naruto. He replied softly. Naruto felt his rage bubbling in his stomach. He felt so many emotions at that moment that his head was spinning and his mind was racing. He needed air, or he'd pass out. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud bang. The Hokage door had been slammed wide open and a little boy roughly the age of 8 or 9 barged in. Naruto barely registered that fact, or what the boy said as he charged the Hokage. Prepare yourself, Grandpa, I challenge you for the role of Hokage. The boy's sentence was cut short by a punch which shook his brain in his cranium. Next thing Konohamaru knew, the blonde guy who was sitting with his back to him was now on top of him, pinning the hand that held the dull practice kunai behind his back. Naruto. Unhand him, you vile creature. Naruto looked over his shoulder just in time to see a Jonin with a headband that looked like a bandana hiding his hair color and glasses like Shino sending a kick at him. Naruto barely dodged the blow, having to release the Hokage's attacker as he jumped away from the attack. Naruto watched confused as the man went to check on the boy who sat up and was glaring at Naruto with a trickle of blood pouring out his nose. You will pay, you damned. Ebisu glanced at the Hokage who was giving him a warning glare. Ebisu shook his head before continuing, apologize for assaulting the Hokage's grandson. The man shouted as he helped Konohamaru to his feet. Naruto just shot a menacing glare at Ebisu and the boy. HMPH, as soon as he finds out I'm the Hokage's grandson, he will beg to keep his job. I don't give a shit if he was the Hokage's grandson, granddaughter, son, or daughter. If I see you attacking the Hokage again, I'll end you, you little shit. Naruto shouted at the boy, sending death glares at the young boy. Satisfied by the young boy's reaction, Naruto took off running out of the Hokage's office. Too much was going on and he wanted to be alone. Konohamaru was left speechless. No one treated him like that, no one. That dude is awesome. Naruto ran out of the Hokage tower, tears falling down his face. He needed to be alone. The Hokage knew all alone, yet for all his life he believed he was alone, an orphan. No one liked him, no one loved him. No one wanted him. His feet pushed harder against the ground, taking him somewhere automatically. An hour later, Team 7 training ground. Sasuke sat in the same spot she was the previous day. She once again was the first one to arrive at the designated Team 7 training ground and was waiting for her teammates and sensei to arrive so they could receive their first mission. She had excited butterflies in her stomach. Today marks my first step towards you, Itachi. Sasuke squeezed her hand into a fist at the thought of her brother. Hey Sasuke-kun, I suppose Naruto-kun and Kakashi-sensei aren't here yet. Sakura said, taking the girl out of her thoughts. Sasuke internally sighed at losing track of her surrounds because of her thoughts of her brother. Then something clicked in Sasuke's mind. When did Sakura start saying Naruto-kun and not just Naruto or some other insult? Sasuke brought her eyes up to meet Sakura's. She had a faint blush on her cheeks as she looked around the training area for someone. Who? Sasuke wasn't sure, but the bubbling feeling in her stomach didn't make her comfortable. In response, she ignored the pink-haired girl's question and shot her a glare for making her feel an uncomfortable feeling. Sakura saw the glare and wisely sat a safe distance away from Sasuke. Sasuke was going to ignore her and turn away from her and get back to her brooding, but Sakura's appearance stopped her. Sakura looked slightly different today. She wore the same thing as usual. Red dress, black spandex that allowed her to hide her undergarments under her clothes. It was her face and hair that caught Sasuke's attention. Usually, the pink-haired girl opted to let her hair hang down ending at the middle of her back or just past her shoulders, but today her hair was tied in a ponytail much like Ino from their class. Usually, Sakura wore very little makeup, only light blush and mascara, at least, she thinks that's what those makeup items were called. Today though, Sakura wore a full face of makeup, everything from foundation to lipstick. She looked like a bona fide copy of Ino, except their style was different. This made Sasuke's eyes squint in suspicion. She sat and tried to reason with herself why the change of appearance but couldn't get a definitive answer. Part of her didn't want to know, but a nagging feeling in her chest caused her to speak without hesitation. You changed your hair? Sasuke asked plainly. Sakura seemed pleasantly surprised that Sasuke noticed the change. She casted her a bright smile that reached her eyes. Yeah, I did. I'm surprised you noticed. Do you like it? Sasuke just huffed and turned away from her, which caused Sakura's smile to falter. You're also wearing more makeup than usual today. Sakura's smile brightened again. You're correct, Sasuke. You're so cool and observant, of course you would notice right away. I hope Naruto-kun notices too. Sakura barely muttered the last sentence audibly, but Sasuke heard it. Her heart raced. She had been worried that Naruto was the reason for the appearance change but had hoped otherwise. Sasuke scratched at the dirt under her, squeezing her hand into a tight fist so tight. She was sure blood would have poured from the wound if the dirt in her hands wasn't stopping her nails from digging into the skin of her palms. She didn't respond but was just internally seething and glaring at the ground in front of her. Sakura, not noticing the building volcano that was Sasuke Uchiha next to her, propped herself back with her arms as she looked up and watched the clouds pass above, speaking to Sasuke without directly looking at him. Ino-chan helped me with Naruto's outfit yesterday. She paused, blush coming to her cheeks. Sasuke visualized her fist connecting with Sakura's jaw, mounting her, then throwing punch after punch down at the girl until her dolled-up face stained red with blood. She hadn't noticed that her Sharingan was spinning due to her intense emotions dwelling in her stomach. I was kind of hoping he'd be here already. He always is asking me out and stuff. I figured today after our mission, if I looked attractive enough, he may ask me again. Sakura said, her blush intensifying. Sasuke was fuming with rage at this. This two-faced whore. Just 3 days ago she'd treat Naruto no different than dirt to boost her own social standing. Now all of a sudden, she was his biggest fan. I cannot stand you, Sakura Haruno. Again, her mouth spoke before her brain could filter it. Naruto isn't attracted to two-faced whores. She spat. This caused Sakura to look at Sasuke, who was glaring at her. Everything about the boy's body language screamed violence. Sakura was shocked. What is his problem? She spoke up in defense of herself before really weighing the consequences of her actions. What is your problem, Sasuke-kun? I am nothing but nice to you. You don't have to be such an all the time. She replied, matching Sasuke's glare, but internally she was scared. Her glare wasn't anywhere close to the menacing, hatefully one she was receiving from Sasuke. He's not a toy for you to play with, Haruno. Stopping with his head. Sasuke spat, standing up, staring down at her. Again, Sakura instincts were telling her to back down. Every fiber of her being and soul was telling her to leave it, but her damn mouth and pride spoke before she could stop herself. She stood looking dead at Sasuke. I don't know what is wrong with you, but you have been acting really strange for these past 2 days. You are not Naruto-kun, dad. You can't boss me around, Sasuke-kun. Sakura stared at her determinedly. Sasuke didn't know why, but whenever Naruto was involved, she always had a list full of emotions: annoyance, happiness, angry, and other emotions that she didn't really want to dive into or disclose. She was seeing red, staring at Sakura. This girl was so determined to interact with the blonde, and it truly pissed her off. Why couldn't she just stay not giving a about Naruto like before? In the back of her mind, she knew the feeling was probably jealousy, or envy, or both. She wasn't accepting that, though she was simply being kind and trying to protect the blonde idiot from this conniving whore. Her body moved before her mind. When it came to Naruto, it pissed her off that she couldn't think rationally, which made her more confused. She sent a hard punch at Sakura, her Sharingan spinning around in a circle quickly. Sakura hadn't even moved, not having a fast enough reaction to the unprovoked strike. Sasuke's hand was caught before it impacted on Sakura's cheek. Sakura was just looking at her with a fearful and surprised expression. Sasuke casted a heated look at Kakashi, who was holding her wrist with one hand, his erotica book in the other. To anyone else, Kakashi held an aloof disposition and only was focused on his book. But Sasuke could see the disapproving look he was casting her way over the top of his book. Let me go, Kakashi. Sasuke spat. Kakashi didn't let her go immediately, expertly turning a page of his book with one hand, the other still stopping the Uchiha from striking Sakura. You're going to have to check that temper of yours, Sasuke. I'm all for defending teammates, but that's not what is going on here, right, Sasuke? Casting a knowing look at the Uchiha, Sasuke recognized the patronizing look, and it pissed her off more. She huffed, yanking her arm out of Kakashi's grasp. Putting her hands in her pocket, she turned away from the duo. Walking away from them, Kakashi turned to his other student who watched the Uchiha walk away. Sakura's face showed a wide range of emotion: anger, fear and dread, sadness, but fear and sadness were by far the most prominent. I don't understand Sasuke-kun at all, Sakura said softly. Kakashi sighed. Sasuke was definitely an interesting character, but Sakura was missing a key piece of information that might have helped her understand the girl better, but Sasuke wasn't correcting anyone yet for whatever reason, so it wasn't his place to do so. He did decide if this became commonplace, he'd intervene whether Sasuke wanted it or not, team first. Kakashi pretended to contemplate something before saying, I think Sasuke is protective of Naruto, maybe because they have similar past, or maybe because Sasuke relates to him some way. Either way, I'd be cautious mentioning Naruto around Sasuke, Kakashi said, leaving the girl to decipher the message and come with her own conclusions. Seeing that he riddled Sakura enough, he led her over to where Sasuke was brooding by herself. Kakashi noted that the Uchiha seemed embarrassed by her actions, which he decided was good. Hopefully it'd be enough to prevent her from attempting to strike her teammate again. Just as quickly as the embarrassment appeared on her face, it was replaced by an emotionless scowl. Well, 2/3 of my little genin team are here. Where is the blonde? Kakashi asked. He had arrived just in time to hear the end of Sakura and Sasuke confrontation and to save Sakura from having a broken jaw on her first day as a shinobi. He was met with silence. Sasuke chose to ignore their presence and continue staring off into the distance, and Sakura seemed almost too afraid to speak about the blonde. Sighing, he put his book away. You two stay here, I will find Naruto. Sasuke, he said, the Uchiha still refusing to look at them again, if you pick a fight with your teammates again, I'll make you regret it. The tension in her shoulders told him she heard him. Satisfied that the Uchiha took his threat seriously, he disappeared off to look for the last member of his team. It took the former Anbu member more time than he'd like to admit to find Naruto. He even had to summon one of his tracker dogs to catch Naruto's scent, but soon the man arrived at the top of the Hokage monument. Dispersing the dog, Kakashi put his hands in his pocket. He approached Naruto slowly. The boy was sitting crisscross on top of the fourth Hokage's head. Kakashi sighed, having a good guess as to why the boy was here now. Kakashi mimicked Naruto sitting next to him. He whipped out his book and decided to read until Naruto was ready to talk. It didn't take too long before the blonde spoke. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said, staring down at the picture he managed to take from his mom's shinobi profile. It was the photo attached to her and his father's marriage certificate. Tears fell from his face. How he longed to be wrapped up in her arms. He wished so badly that she was here right now, holding him like she was holding her stomach in the picture. With the same loving smile on her face. He wished that she would take the loneliness from his heart. What are you thanking me for, Naruto? Kakashi said lazily, turning a page, feigning ignorance. Naruto turned to him. Hokage Ojii, Hokage-sama told me you managed to convince him into telling me the truth. I did, Kakashi said plainly. Thank you for that. You don't have to thank me, Naruto. Matter of fact, I should apologize to you for letting you believe for so long that there was no one here who cared about you. I care, and you have more admirers than even you are aware of. I honestly deserve just as much anger as you have for the Hokage right now. Naruto's face was confused, so Kakashi continued. He put his book down and looked at Naruto in his eyes. I was there, Naruto. 15 years, almost 16 on the day of your birth. I was Anbu at the time. I failed to protect Lord Fourth, your father, my sensei, and your mother. I have lived with that shame ever since. I also excused my inaction and not being involved in your life, saying to myself that I was just following Lord Third orders, but that's not true completely. I was too ashamed. But I saw you the day before your genin exam, painting your father's face. From the ground looking up, you looked so much like him, it made me remember the promise I gave myself after the died. I promised to support and be there for you as Minato-sensei was there for me. Your father was like a father to me. After mine passed away, then I lost a lot of my friends, and I was ashamed of myself for allowing you to feel that same loneliness I had a long time ago. Naruto just remained quiet. I decided that I'd be your Jonin instructor and try my best to right those years of wrong. So, I am truly sorry Naruto-kun, for my multiple failures that have led us to where we are right now. I don't have the ability to change the past, but I can try to be there for you in the future. So please forgive me. Naruto looked at Kakashi and gave him a sad smile. I forgive you Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Good, now I'd understand if you need a few days off from missions to get your head on straight. The longest I could give you is probably 48 hours, but sadly I have to go and check on your other two teammates and make sure they aren't ripping each other heads off. This caused Naruto to smile. Yeah, I bet Sakura finally realized how much of a bastard Sasuke is. Kakashi just shook his head. You have no idea Naruto. Kakashi got up deciding to give the blonde his space. He was surprised when the blonde stood up with him. Kakashi casted Naruto a questioning look. Are you sure you want to work today, Naruto? Naruto just nodded, a small fake smile reaching his face. If I make those two wait any longer I'm sure they will hang me or something, he said, half joking half serious. Kakashi sighed, nodding his head in understanding before giving the boy a stern look. If I decide at any point today that your performance is a detriment to the team, I will send you home and you will have 48 hours to get yourself together. Do you understand? Kakashi said. Yes sensei. By the way Naruto, your parents were S-class shinobi with enemies across the globe. It'd be best for now to keep your lineage a secret. Naruto was silent for a while before simply saying, yes sensei. Kakashi led the boy back to their teammates. Kakashi half expected to walk into a war zone. Sakura was stubborn, Sasuke was stubborn, even Naruto was stubborn, so conflict between the three was unavoidable. He just hoped that it wouldn't lead to bloodshed. He was pleasantly surprised to see that his two female students were not killing each other. Well, he supposed that it wouldn't be much of a fight, Sasuke would just be mercilessly beating Sakura. Instead, he found the two obviously avoiding each other but otherwise both unharmed and sitting a good distance away from each other. His arrival was noticed by Sakura first. She smiled warmly at him, then her eyes brought her to Naruto. He noticed the blush that appeared on her face upon seeing him. Kakashi noted that was a new reaction to Naruto. He glanced at Naruto to see that he wasn't really looking at either of them, looking at trees in the distance, his mind away from what was happening before him. That was when Kakashi noticed that Naruto wasn't wearing his usual attire. He'd been with the boy for the past 45 minutes but just realized the change of outfit. I guess not having bright orange on makes him less eye-catching. Kakashi had no idea, he only thought like that because he was a boy and there were a few girls who saw Naruto's new attire and would argue otherwise. Kakashi looked over it a few times and approved of the new outfit. It exposed a fair bit of the blonde's muscled chest but otherwise was a good outfit for a shinobi. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto-kun, where were you? I hope you don't plan on being late like our sensei from now on. Sakura said, giving the boy a blushing smile, teasing him flirtatiously. If Naruto noticed, which Kakashi was sure he didn't, his face didn't show it, he just offered a small smile, the same one he gave him earlier. Kakashi was beginning to recognize that was Naruto's default smile, one that seemed not to reach his eyes. Upon hearing Naruto's name, Sasuke had immediately snapped to the two late arrivals. Kakashi noted that Sasuke's gaze barely remained on him for a second before taking in the blonde's arrival. Her reaction to the boy's attire was immediate. Her face blushed so red one would say it was more maroon or purple, even from her forehead to her chin, even parts of her neck. Ear to ear, the Uchiha couldn't hide her blushing face. Nor did it seem like she could take her eyes off Naruto. He watched as her Sharingan seemed to flare unconsciously and knew that the spinning of her Sharingan meant she was feeling uncontrollably excited at the blonde's appearance. He guessed that she could also be unfathomable angry too, but that just wasn't what he would put his money on. Her Sharingan continued to spin as she stared and he chuckled to himself, fully aware what doing something like that would cause her to never forget the image in front of her, one of the perks of the Sharingan, also a curse. Now Sasuke, what exactly are you going to do later with that imagine of Naruto burned into your memory? Chuckling to himself like a teenage girl at his perverse thought. He watched Sasuke subconsciously start twiddling with her hair while looking at Naruto. This act sealed the deal for Kakashi. He had been suspicious of the Uchiha curiosity in the Uzumaki since day one. In the Shinobi Academy before his arrival she kept glancing at him, but he couldn't tell why. Then yesterday he formed his hypothesis that the girl was in deep for the blonde, but he deliberately assigned Sakura to help Naruto to gauge her reaction. He wasn't entirely convinced though because she seemed more embarrassed than angry, but now there was no doubt. The Uchiha likes Naruto, although he was sure that the girl was not admitting it to herself. If the scowl she gave them to try and cover her internal embarrassment at ogling Naruto was an indication. The girl was forcing herself into denial for what reason he had no idea. But her heart was betraying her actions to the experienced Jonin. He had to physically stop himself from giggling out loud. A good ol' love triangle, huh? It reminds me of Ika Ika Paradise Volume 2. Naruto likes Sakura. Sakura likes Sasuke at least for now, and Sasuke is in love with Naruto although heavily denying it. It's like I have first-hand seats to the drama in the book. I just hope I don't have to witness the violence that love triangle caused though. Being shaken out of his thoughts by glares casted at him by Sasuke, who was standing closer than usual to Naruto, Sakura was also glaring at him, and Naruto was looking at him with a face of confusion-worry. I guess I let out a few perverted giggles unintentionally. Sasuke sat with Sakura after Kakashi left. She half heard him say that he was going to go find Naruto and scoffed internally at his threat before leaving. She was so pissed with herself for allowing her emotions to explode so rapidly. Sakura fangirling over every boy just pissed her off so much. Especially over Naruto. She just wanted to beat the girl's face in so bad, because of the looks she was giving her when talking about Naruto. She hadn't noticed that in the middle of her brooding for 45 minutes Kakashi and Naruto had returned until she heard Sakura say his name. She looked instinctively as though her eyes were drawn to the blonde. She saw Kakashi only briefly before her eyes caught sight of Naruto. He was looking at Sakura, but the smile he gave her didn't reach his eyes. She felt a sense of relief because of that, not that she cared. She felt her face heat up and her heart racing as blood rushed hot all across her body. Naruto no longer wore his Konoha shinobi headband on his forehead like most shinobi. Instead, he had it embroidered on his sleeve. Her eyes looked at him from head to toe. His hair was no longer held back by his headband and hung around his face like it did at the academy. He looked so strikingly similar to someone she just couldn't put her finger on it. Her eyes traced him down from his hair to his handsome face. His blue eyes were not looking at her and she felt a now becoming daily bubble in her gut at the lack of attention. She looked at his lips which held a small smile that she recognized immediately as his fake one. Thankful that Sakura couldn't get a genuine smile from him right now. Her eyes went to his neck. For some reason her eyesight was more acute, and she subconsciously recognized that her Sharingan must be active, but she didn't care. A very real and very present part of her wanted to trace his carotid artery with her tongue, wondering how he would taste. Her blush deepened. She knew she should have stopped there. She tried to stop but her eyes weren't letting her. She couldn't look away as she memorized the sight of him in this moment. She traced his body down from his neck to his muscular chest. Naruto wasn't the biggest person she's seen muscle-wise, but his chest was undeniably defined, and she got a good look at him. She hated the annoyance she felt at his black kimono blocking the rest of his strong broad chest. She looked him up and down multiple times, so many times she lost track. She hated why he looked to her. She hated that Sakura was the one to dress him in such an alluring way. She hated that this would be his attire from now on. He would get the attention of any female with a brain between her ears, and she despised the thought. Grimacing and scowling, she finally managed to pull her eyes away from him at the thought of other women looking at him the same way. She noticed as she stared at a rock in front of her that her breathing had become labored, and her panties were so wet that she could feel a thin strand falling down her leg. She squeezed her legs together tightly to release the pressure between her legs and hopefully also catch that thin strand of liquid going down her. She cursed her hormonal teenage hormones and used her upcoming monthly cycle as the reason for her body's reaction. Damn hormones. She thought, steeling herself before looking back at Naruto, satisfied that only her blood raced and her heartbeat increased, but no other reaction came from her body. When she stood, She was pissed that her legs were slightly wobbly and her womanhood was hot like fire. Hissing, she steadied herself and joined Naruto and Sakura, who were conversing casually, which caused her to roll her eyes. Their conversation was cut by Kakashi letting out a perverted giggle. Any excitement Sasuke felt, any wetness her womanhood had dried instantly at the perverted noise. Only she and Sakura seemed to understand it. Naruto just looked at the two of them confused before looking at Kakashi. Whatever caused the pervert to giggle so disgustingly was quickly dismissed by him as he spoke. Okay, Team 7, let's get ready to go get our first assignment. Naruto face lit up and I had to look away to hide my smirk, he was too easily excited. But first let's take a team picture. Before any of them could react, Kakashi was behind them with a camera wrapping his arms around the three. Naruto was still smiling, and Sasuke noted Sakura was too. She tried her best to remove the smirk off her face and put on an uninterested scowl, but Kakashi was too fast. She wasn't sure she stopped smirking in time, but at least she wasn't looking at the other two. Great, now let's go, Kakashi said, leading them into town. Kakashi-sensei, I want that picture. Naruto shouted. Me too. Okay, I'll make sure to get one printed for each of us. Sasuke rolled her eyes, knowing that the picture would probably end up at her front door one of these days, even though she hadn't expressed interest in one. Meaning that Kakashi would trespass onto her clan compound again. They walked to the Hokage Tower in relative silence, well, as much silence as walking with Uzumaki Naruto could be. Hey Naruto-kun, Sakura started, causing Naruto to look at her. Sasuke felt that boiling feeling again. That bitch better not. Either she didn't see her warning glare or ignored it. Yay Sakura, do you notice anything different about me today? She said, smiling sweetly, twirling quickly as they walked to allow Naruto a better view of her. Sasuke had to stop herself from tripping or pushing the girl over. She glanced at Kakashi, who was watching her like a hawk. She scowled and tried to tune out the conversation. Naruto paused for a moment. To Sasuke it felt like an eternity. Her heart was racing and she could hear the pounding in her ears. Nope. You look the same as always, Sakura. Naruto said, smiling gently at her before turning away. Sakura had an embarrassed look on her face before it was replaced by an angry and annoyed scowl. If she had looked at Sasuke, she would have seen him, her smile, for the first time. As they walked, she noted that the civilians who saw them would look curiously, some having pride in their eyes, but their pride would give way to fear, anger and malice. She traced the looks the civilians gave her group back to Naruto. Instinctively she walked closer to Naruto. She glanced at Kakashi, sure he would notice, but if he did, he showed no sign of it. She had gotten a little too close to Naruto and her hand brushed against his. This caused her to blush and Naruto to look down at her. He had a worried look, and his eyes showed his concern, which made her blush even more. You okay, Sasuke? He asked her worriedly. She couldn't meet his eyes, so she just scoffed, rolling her eyes, and looked away from him. She heard Naruto mumble, "Bastard," under his breath, which caused her to smirk. For the remainder of their walk to the Hokage Tower, she didn't move away from Naruto, and casted a heated glare at anyone she saw glaring at Naruto. She casted her death glare at the women who flushed and stared, ogling him. Kakashi went and grabbed their mission from one of the mission clerks at the base floor of the Hokage Tower, and the three of them waited for him to return with their mission. I hope we get a super cool mission, where I can show off my skills. Maybe an A rank or S rank mission would be nice. Don't be. Sakura started before glancing at Sasuke, who was already glaring as if saying, I dare you to say it, bitch, Naruto-kun. She restarted. We are new gen and we will probably only be granted D rank assignments for now, we learned that in the academy. Aw man, well, if Kakashi-sensei tells them that Uzumaki Naruto is the one on the mission, I'm sure they will give us the best one. Idiot, Sasuke said, rolling her eyes, turning away to hide her smirk. Sakura just looked at Sasuke confused. So, I can't insult him, but you can, Sasuke. Why? Kakashi returned and Sasuke had to hold herself back from laughing at the blonde's reaction to the mission. Although she knew it wouldn't be a complicated task, she didn't expect their first mission to be finding a damn cat. 4 hours later, Team 7 minus Kakashi were looking like they just left a battlefield. Naruto had scratches up and down his body from that demon cat. Sasuke's outfit was covered in dirt. Sakura makeup had been ruined, which caused Naruto to say her face was melting and caused her to punch him instinctively. Her clothes were dirty as well, and she was currently pulling twigs out her hair. Congratulations on the completion of your first D-ranked assignment, Kakashi said, handing his 3 angry genin their mission pays. They each accepted the pouch of money designated for them. Naruto looked at the contents and his excitement was palpable. I'm going straight to Ichiraku. Kakashi smiled at them. Okay, well, that's all for today. Oh, also Naruto, I took the leisure while you 3 were looking for Tora to drop something off at your apartment. The Hokage wanted you to have. Sasuke noted the scowl on Naruto's face at the mention of the Hokage, and his immediate change in attitude. Well, you have the rest of the day off. We will meet tomorrow at the same place, same time, Kakashi said, waving over his shoulder as he walked off. Whatever ticked Naruto off didn't last long when Sakura spoke next. Well, if you're going to Ichiraku, Naruto, I'll join you, but I'd need an hour or 2 to get ready, Sakura said, blushing. Naruto obviously missed the hint, but I'm hungry right now, he whined. Sakura glared at him and was about to respond. Sasuke had to cut her off before she let the idiot know it was a date invite or something, otherwise she didn't want to know what they'd do. Naruto, I'm coming over to your house. I will teach you how to cook today, Sasuke said, immediately cutting off Sakura. Sasuke didn't want Naruto alone with Sakura. Nor did she want him around Ayame. He'd be around both them at Ichiraku, and that just wasn't acceptable. She told herself that Naruto shouldn't be wasting money he just received on fast food. Sakura just looked at her, obviously displeased, but remained quiet. Awesome. Do you know where I live? Are we going right now? Are you going to teach me how to make ramen? Sasuke rolled her eyes, smirking at him. There are more foods in the world than ramen, Naruto. No, I don't know where you live, but we can go right now if you take me, she said, turning to lead him out of the Hokage tower. Hey Sasuke-kun, Sakura called out to her. Sakura didn't know why, but she felt immensely jealous of Sasuke's intervention, or maybe she was jealous of Naruto getting attention from Sasuke that she wanted for years. Either way, Sasuke was interrupting her attempt to ask Naruto out, and she didn't like it. Didn't he have any idea what she was trying to do? Can I come? She asked almost pleadingly. Didn't you say you don't like cooking? Sasuke retorted. She was grateful Sakura let that information slip during their first team meeting. Sakura was stunned into silence, blushing that Sasuke-kun actually remembered that fact about her, but before she could rebuttal, Sasuke replied. I am not teaching a cooking class, Sakura. She watched Sasuke turn and walk out the Hokage tower with a hungry Naruto hot on his heels, leaving her there with a mix of conflicting emotions. Then why are you bothering to teach Naruto? Naruto followed Sasuke out of the Hokage tower and into the streets. They remained quiet for a while, Naruto just mindlessly following Sasuke, until they passed the road that would lead to his apartment complex. This was when he decided to speak up. Hey Sasuke, where are we going? Not bothering to turn around when replying, Sasuke said, we are going to a grocery store to buy supplies for dinner. Naruto sighed, thinking about the last store disaster just yesterday with his teammate Sakura. He had half the mind to back out right then and there, but when would he get another opportunity to learn to cook? Or hang out with Sasuke? Naruto paused to think for a moment. Sasuke had been strangely more open lately. Something about him was different than the Sasuke he had known for 3 years in the academy. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. Sasuke was being his usual bastard self, poking fun at Naruto any chance he got, but lately his barbs didn't have the same sting as they used to. Not that he was complaining, he definitely preferred this bastard to the one from the academy. Sasuke, just to warn you, I usually go to the same stores. Most places are too expensive for me, and I'm not particularly welcomed most places, he said. Sasuke paused, turning to look at him. He had a curious look on his face as though he was considering what Naruto just said to him. And why is that, Naruto? Did you prank a lot of shops in Konoha? No. Well, a few, but not all of them. I guess that could be the reason I never stopped to ask why, Naruto said, lying as he refused to meet Sasuke's penetrating gaze. He's lying. Sasuke knew he was lying immediately. His eyes were telling her that what was coming out his mouth was not the truth. She just hemmed a reply, naturally turning to walk away. assuming he'd continue following her towards a shop she frequented. Sasuke was still internally blaming her approaching monthly cycle for her behavior today. She snapped at Sakura, almost physically assaulting her for what? Naruto. She couldn't believe herself. Now because of that same feeling she got when Sakura was talking about Naruto, and Ayame's provocative actions yesterday, she was stuck making dinner for the idiot. Somehow this was all Naruto's fault. She just needed to get home as soon as possible after this to sort her thoughts. Maybe stab a training dummy or two until the calluses on her hands peeled off, then she'd feel better. Mentally preparing herself for unwanted time with Naruto, she blushed when she thought about how she just invited herself over to his house suddenly. The idiot was too naive to know it wasn't normal for a girl to suddenly invite herself over like that. Sakura was a different story. Sakura may be naive at times, but she isn't dumb. She called out her strange behavior earlier today. She wished that she understood it completely herself. Part of her new Sakura wasn't a whore, nor was she trying to deceive Naruto in any way. Sakura was probably genuinely interested in getting to know Naruto. Since he was more than a lazy class clown. If anyone was being deceptive, it was her. She was purposefully trying to keep him away from people, girls. Sasuke shook her head. She didn't need to be thinking about this. All she had to do was cook a meal for Naruto, show him how to make it, she'd leave the recipe with him, then she could be done with him, and done with this. Strengthening her resolve, she approached the store she frequently visited. "We're here," she said, turning to face him. He looked at her with a worried expression. She glanced back at the store, then to Naruto. "Don't tell me this was one of the stores you pranked." She couldn't keep the annoyance from entering her voice. "No, it's just that I don't really want to cause any trouble for you, Sasuke-kun. I'm really not welcomed at most places." Sasuke narrowed her eyes at this. "Well, you're with me, so it should be no problem." Not waiting for his response, she dragged him into the store. They walked into her favorite grocery store. She was greeted by the store owner immediately. He was an older man whose family had owned the store for years. Her and her mother used to frequent the store often. So often she didn't always have to pay for things she got while there. The owner would just add it to a tab and send it to her home at the end of the month, if he billed her at all. "Hello Sasuke-chan, how are you doing today?" he asked her, smiling at her. "I am doing good, Botan. I hope you are well. I have a friend with me today. Is it a problem if he shops here from now on?" Her eyes were daring the old man to challenge her. Botan looked at the boy and held his gasp in front of Sasuke. His eyes narrowed at the boy. Naruto was trying his best to hide behind Sasuke. Sasuke was such a dickhead. He immediately sought confrontation with the shop owner. Naruto had hoped to avoid this until the end. Like with Sakura, he should have known that Sasuke would be way more confrontational. Sasuke watched the man's eyes narrow. His eyes had the same anger and hate towards Naruto as the villagers earlier. She glared at the man, picturing taking a kunai and stabbing the shop owner in each eye that dared look at Naruto that way. She figured he felt her hateful gaze because he took his eyes off Naruto and immediately stepped back away from her. "And no, it's not a PR problem, Sasuke-chan." Sasuke, still glaring at the man, said, "Tell him he can shop her as many times and how often he wants." She demanded. If he refused Naruto's service, she just might kill him. Old family friend or not, she can just say it was training for stealing her heart to kill her brother later. "Naruto, you can use my shop whenever you please." Smiling, she turned to Naruto. "See, I told you." She walked away towards the items she'd need, knowing the store like the back of her hand. Naruto was left speechless. His face resembled the faces of Hinata, and that shop lady he saw earlier. Blush reaching his cheeks and ears. He smiled. I actually saw Sasuke smile. Sasuke has a great smile, why doesn't he do it more? Naruto's heart had skipped a beat at the smile he received from Sasuke. It literally left him frozen in his tracks. He felt a smile raise to his face. "Thanks, Botan." Botan just fixed him with a steely look. "I will hold you personally responsible for any damage caused to my store, boy." Sure," Naruto said before dashing off towards Sasuke. Sasuke was looking at the meat selection, specifically the steak cuts, when Naruto caught up to her. "Hey bastard." Taking her eyes off the steaks, she looked over at Naruto. "What is it, idiot? Naruto smiled at her, shyly scratching the back of his head. Thanks for that. Don't mention it, really don't. Sasuke said, smirking, turning back to the meats. Yeah, I won't, but I wonder how Sakura will feel when I tell her I saw you smile. Not smirk, but a real genuine smile. Naruto said as he looked at Sasuke back. He watched the boy freeze and Naruto burst out laughing. You must be mistaken, idiot, I never smiled. Sasuke said as she looked over the meats, deciding on a 25 ounces filet mignon steak for the both of them. Placing it in her handheld cart, she turned to see Naruto giving her a shit-faced mischievous grin. You sure did smile. I saw it with both eyes. Naruto said, pointing at his eyes for dramatic effect. Sasuke rolled her eyes as she headed to the produce section. I will deny it until the day I die. This caused Naruto to smile harder as he ran to catch up to her. Ha, so you did smile. I don't know why you're so emotionally constipated. You have a great smile, Sasuke-kun, real latest killer. Naruto said casually. He missed the blush his compliment put on her face. Drop the kun. Naruto, just call me Sasuke. She saw the confused look on his face. She usually didn't care, but now it just didn't feel right for him to call her Sasuke-kun anymore. Sure thing, Sasuke. Naruto thought about something. The shop owner called Sasuke-chan, like he is a girl. Just like Kiba always said. He looked at Sasuke curiously as he reached down, inspecting a bundle of asparagus. Hey Sasuke, can I ask you something? Did you see the items I grabbed? Sasuke said, ignoring him. She felt he was going to ask her something annoying that he should know already. Yay. You grabbed some meat from that aisle over there, then came over here for those green stick things, and you also have potatoes. He said, looking in the bag. Yes, I'm going to teach you how to make steak, asparagus and mashed potatoes. She looked him up and down, proud of herself for keeping her blush minimal. You could use the protein pipsqueak. Hey bastard, I'm the same height as you. Naruto said, standing straighter. Sasuke scowled at him before walking over to him. She stood next to him and smirked. She was still taller than him, but he had definitely grown at least an inch. In your dreams, pipsqueak, I still got you by at least an inch, and I'm only 5 feet 9. Damn bastard, you just think you're better than me at everything, don't you? He said, giving her a glare that didn't reach his eyes. She just smirked, turning away. I know I am Naruto. Get back here, Naruto said, shouting at the girl as she approached the counter. Did you two find everything okay? Botan said, eyeing Naruto but keeping his face neutral to avoid the wrath of Sasuke. Yes, we did. No damage to the store, right? Botan said, looking at Naruto. Naruto just smiled to the man. Nope. Nodding his head, he took the money from Sasuke and she walked out the store. Naruto following her outside. Lead the way, idiot, I don't know where you live. Oh yeah, follow me, Naruto said, cheeks turning a slight shade of pink. She followed Naruto to his home. They were headed the opposite direction from her clan compound. Her heart started racing again at the thought of being alone with Naruto. Stop, you need to stop thinking like that. You're teaching him how to make steak and potatoes and that's it. They eventually arrived at a decent apartment complex. She knew the area too. It seemed that the shop she frequented was halfway between her house and Naruto's house. Which confused her because that was the closest grocery shop to him. So where did he usually get his groceries? Naruto, where do you usually get your groceries from? Oh, I usually go to Picard. Sasuke was surprised. Picard was the furthest grocery store from him. It was on the complete opposite side of the village. Before we go inside, I wasn't expecting visitors today, so my place might be a bit of a mess. Sasuke groaned. She hated clutter. Mentally preparing herself, she noted that Naruto's apartment was on the second floor, apartment 2014. His apartment complex was run down, raggedy looking. She hardly considered the living space to be even remotely habitable. Naruto opened the door, walking in, and she followed. She looked around his apartment. She was pleasantly surprised that if this is what Naruto considered a mess, then it wasn't too bad actually. She found herself walking away from him, and exploring his apartment. As you walked in the door, you were met with a hallway that branched off to the left and led to an open living space. The door was closed, but she assumed that on the other side of the door was his room. The hallway opened up to the living room, which was connected to his kitchen. She couldn't help but notice the lack of decor and pictures in his apartment, but he had some plants along the walls. She walked over to some of them need to have their leaves trimmed but otherwise were in great shape. She turned to the kitchen, walking into it, placing the groceries on the counter. She turned to see Naruto sitting at his kitchen table just staring at her. What? Sasuke said, suddenly feeling self-conscious. Naruto blushed at being caught staring. I just never expected you to like plants. Sasuke was confused before smirking. I wouldn't have expected you to like plants, Naruto. Naruto just muttered, bastard, under his breath. Sasuke began washing her hands, before turning to Naruto, come wash your hands, I'm not your private chief. You're helping me. Naruto mocked her by giving her a mocking salute, yes, head chief San. Before joining her in the kitchen, he looked at Sasuke's hands, he just noticed that they were really small for a boy. Hey Sasuke, you have really tiny hands for a boy. Naruto said, grabbing her hand and holding it up to his to compare the two. Sasuke was blushing mad red and left her hand on his longer than she cared to admit before pulling it away from him, muttering, idiot. Naruto just laughed. Sasuke started looking for a potato peeler and other supplies in his cabinets, which were unsurprisingly empty. Geez, Naruto, it's like you never cooked a day in your life. Hey, I cook ramen all the time. He defended. Sasuke rolled her eyes, that isn't cooking. She found the last item she needed before turning to Naruto, okay, do you see everything I have out right now? He nodded his head. This is everything you are going to need to make steak, asparagus and mashed potatoes. I'm assuming you don't know how to clean and peel potatoes. Yeah, I have no idea how to do that. Nodding her head, she began explaining to him how he should hold the knife, and how to properly peel potatoes after showing him how to clean them. Naruto was surprisingly a good listener. She half expected to have to throw something at him or threaten him with bodily harm while teaching him. But he remained attentive and asked decent questions. She was surprised that he didn't know how to use his own oven. So, she showed him how to set it up and how to use it. It took them about 45 minutes to have dinner ready. Naruto was making her a plate when she stopped him. You want me to eat with you? I intended the second steak to be for you, for tomorrow. Oh no bastard, you're eating it here with me, you may have poisoned me or something. Naruto said jokingly. Idiot, I made it right in front of you. Still, you used spices I never touched before, I'm not too sure. Sasuke rolled her eyes. If you wanted me to eat with you so bad, you could have just said it. Naruto paused, looking at her with a seriousness that didn't fit his face. I want you to eat with me, Sasuke. Oh okay, she stuttered. Damn, what the is wrong with me? Smiling at her, he went and continued making her plate before taking both plates over to the table. She followed him, sitting across from him. He just smiled at her, and she gave him a small smirk. They sat in silence, enjoying the peace and quiet. A calm, comfortable air filled the apartment. This is so good, and asparagus, I think I love asparagus. Naruto said, biting into it. Sasuke gave him a small smile. It's good for you, but if you eat too much it'll make your pee smell funny for a while, so stay hydrated. Quote. Naruto just nodded as he continued to eat. Sasuke hadn't realized how comfortable Naruto made her feel. He was always loud and brash, and he was an idiot, but he was also really kind, and open, honest. He reminded her of family. It felt strange. She felt guilty for feeling content, happy even. Naruto seemed to notice her somber mood. You okay, Sasuke? Yay, just thinking, she said, giving him a half smile. About what? Naruto finished his food and even had seconds of the mashed potatoes and vegetables. Sasuke was surprisingly a good cook, and a great teacher. He half expected him to beat him or yell at him when he made a mistake. But Sasuke didn't yell at him at all, just corrected him by showing him the proper way to do things. I haven't cooked for anyone outside my family before, it's just a little strange, I guess. Naruto nodded, understandable. Well, you're a great cook. If the shinobi business doesn't work out for you, you could open your own restaurant. I know I'd come, but I'd expect free meals. Sasuke smirked. Then I wouldn't make any money and you'd eat me out of business. They both laughed, chuckling together, looking at each other. Soon they fell into a comfortable silence, still staring into each other's eyes. When did Sasuke get so cute? Naruto blushed, breaking eye contact first, embarrassment hitting his face. No way, he just called a boy cute. I don't swing that way. I don't swing that way. I don't swing that way. He shifted his thoughts away from Sasuke attractiveness in that moment. He didn't like boys and he definitely wasn't trying to kill the mood. Hey, Sasuke. Yes, Naruto. If it makes you feel any better, you're the first person I've had over her. And this is the first time anyone has cooked anything for me. Sasuke gave him a sad smile. It does, Naruto. I'm glad you enjoyed it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Sasuke noticed Naruto's confused face. The person knocked at the door again, seeming to shake Naruto out of his thoughts. I'm coming, he shouted. I wonder who it is. I don't get many visitors. He told her as he walked towards the door. He stopped, pausing for a moment. I don't get any visitors. She couldn't see his face, but she could see his aura and it wasn't his usual sunshine. He opened the door. Kakashi-sensei. What are you doing here? And when did it turn to nighttime? Sasuke turned her head to the window. It was indeed evening time. The sun of the day had given way to the stars of the night. It's 9 p.m. Naruto. May I come in? I wanted to talk to you about the scrolls you received. Yeah, come on in. And what scrolls? She heard them returning. The scrolls the Hokage gave to Yo. Kakashi paused mid-sentence looking at her. She couldn't see because his face was covered by the mask, but she could tell in his eyes his mind was contemplating why she was here. She watched him look her over, then glance at Naruto before looking him over, then back to her direction and scanning the table. Hello Sasuke, it's a surprise to see you here. Sasuke just rolled her eyes, not even bothering to reply, crossing her arms and looking out the window. So welcoming, Kakashi teased her. Where are the scrolls, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto said excitedly. I put them on your bed, but I see you haven't made it to that part yet. Kakashi said innocently. Naruto just looked confused before running to his bedroom saying, okay, I'll grab them. Sasuke caught the dirty reference though and glared at Kakashi, who smiled at her. Well, Sasuke-chan, if you would have asked me yesterday if I ever pictured you having dinner with Naruto, just the two of you, I'd say no way. He teased. Sasuke scowled at him but didn't respond. Was it the outfit? Kakashi asked, not looking at her, just looking around Naruto's apartment. Sasuke blushed at this. So, it was the outfit. Maybe you should consider a change in dress. Who knows what the results could be? Kakashi teased. At this, Sasuke frowned and looked down at her clothes. My mother liked this outfit. Well, nothing's wrong with it. It's efficient for shinobi work, that's for sure, but socially it's a bit too ambiguous. That can't be beneficial to your goal of reviving your clan now, can it? Sasuke thought for a moment. Whatever she was thinking, she didn't have time to tell Kakashi because Naruto returned with a heavy-looking bag. Her curiosity triggered. Naruto seemed really excited by whatever was in the bag. I originally came to help you study these, but I wasn't expecting you to have company. Kakashi said, eyeing her. Naruto looked at her, then Kakashi. Yeah, Sasuke came for dinner. Now which one should I open first? Naruto said as he pulled out scrolls. Wait, Naruto, I think Sasuke should leave. Remember what I told you? Naruto looked confused for a moment before realization hit him. He looked at her sadly. Sasuke scoffed, getting up before he could ask her to leave. She felt a level of annoyance that bothered her at the fact that Naruto seemingly valued learning whatever was in the scrolls, then spending more time with her. See you later, Naruto. Good night, Sasuke. Let me get the door for ya. Naruto got up, walking her to the door. Sorry for this. I was enjoying hanging out with you. Kakashi just wants me to keep this a secret, so don't tell anyone, okay? Naruto said, whispering to her as he followed her to his front door. Sasuke was even more curious now. Kakashi wanted him to keep a secret. That had something to do with scrolls given to him by the Hokage. What's the deal with the secrecy? She asked curiously. It has something to do with my parents. That's all I can tell you, okay? But I'll talk to him and see if I can convince him to tell you and Sakura. Sasuke was annoyed that Naruto wanted to involve Sakura in whatever secret he was hiding but didn't let it show. She just nodded her head as they reached the front door. He opened it and she stepped out. Walking away from his apartment building before she got more than 3 doors down, he called out to her. Sasuke. She turned to him. The sight of him made her breath hitch. Her heart was pounding in her chest. He was smiling brightly at her as if she was the best thing in the world. His eyes shone with a light that warmed her even from where she stood. Thanks for dinner. You really made my day. I had a pretty rough morning, but you completely turned that around, so thanks, bastard. Sasuke smiled at him just as brightly. Anytime, pipsqueak. She said, turning and walking away. She missed his blush at seeing her smile so genuinely and was out of earshot to hear him mutter, I'm going to hold you to that. Walking back inside, Naruto joined Kakashi in his living room. The older man was sitting on his couch looking at an open scroll. So Naruto, when did you and Sasuke become so close? I thought you guys hated each other. I don't hate Sasuke, it's just that he can be pretty annoying and bigoted at times, and it makes me want to punch his face in. Kakashi just eyed Naruto, his look was making the blonde uncomfortable. Whatever Kakashi was looking for, he didn't seem to find it. Shrugging his shoulders, he turned back to the scroll in front of him. These scrolls are a gift from you from the Hokage. Really, they are your birthrights as the only living heir of Kushina and Minato. This scroll I have here is the history of the Uzumaki clan. I suggest you read it, it seems pretty interesting so far. Also take this one, Kakashi said, handing Naruto a scroll. As he opened it, Kakashi spoke. That scroll is the step-by-step process Minato-sensei took in creating his original jutsu, the Rasengan. After you read and write me a report on the Uzumaki history scroll, we will dive into learning the Rasengan. There are other scrolls here and a few of them contain more complicated jutsu. So, I'd like to start with the simplest one first. Although I say it is simple, the Rasengan is an extremely powerful jutsu. It may take you years to master it on your own. Naruto looked both determined and shocked that the jutsu could take him years to learn. AWH man, and you say this is the easiest one? I don't want to take years learning one jutsu. Naruto complained. Minato-sensei took 3 years to create and learn the Rasengan. Naruto's eyes opened in a horrified expression. But unlike Minato-sensei, you Naruto have me to help you. Also, you have the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto looked at Kakashi with confusion. What does the Shadow Clone Jutsu have to go with anything? Kakashi just face-palmed himself before turning to Naruto. Come sit, we have a lot to discuss. Uchiha clan compound. Sasuke huffed and puffed as she caught her breath. She had arrived at her clan compound from Naruto's house 3 hours ago, but her heart had not slowed down since seeing his smile before leaving. She decided to use that excess energy for some training. She was laying on her back with her knees up pointed at the sky. She had completed 999 sit-ups and had just one more left before she would go shower and get in the bed. What is going on between Naruto and Kakashi? Sasuke thought as she laid down in her sit-up position looking at the stars in the night sky. Whatever Naruto and Kakashi was hiding, it had to be big. Naruto wasn't the most deceptive shinobi, so him keeping a secret had to mean something big. And whatever they are involved in, it has something to do with the Hokage. She mustered up the strength to do her last sit-up. Her breath was ragged, and her abdominal muscles convulsed and spasmed at her attempt, but through pure strength and will she managed to complete it. Wrapping her arms around her knees to hold herself up, she continued sitting and thinking, in the middle of her clan's training ground. At the thought of the secret Naruto shared with Kakashi and the Hokage, she brought her eyes to the Hokage monument. Specifically looking at the face of the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. She started at it, contemplating what he had to do with Naruto's secret. As she thought, her eyes shifted to the right of the third Hokage's face to the fourth. The fourth Hokage was probably very handsome. She thought as she stared at the monument. Even in the artistic imagine, the fourth Hokage had a handsomely defined face. He looks very familiar. This thought puzzled her for a moment. She continued staring at the statue standing to try to get a better look at it. She continued to stare as she thought. He looks so familiar, but that's not possible. I have never seen the fourth Hokage before. He died on the day of the Nine Tails attack. Sasuke continued to look at the image of the fourth Hokage. You know, he kind of looks like Naruto. The image of Naruto's smiling face as she left his apartment flashed in her mind. Her heart fluttered in response, but she compared that image to the one of the fourth Hokage. Her breathing picked up. They look awfully similar, and Naruto was born on the 10th, the same day as the Nine Tails attack. Sasuke's head was spinning as her mind tried to connect the dots. She walked into her home, mindlessly heading towards her shower, stripping before stepping inside. Is that just a coincidence? If the fourth Hokage had a child, the whole village would know about it. It'd even be celebrated. There is no way Naruto is related to the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze. Right. She just couldn't shake the similarities out of her head. Stepping out of her shower, she wrapped herself in a towel after drying off. Not bothering to put clothes on, she walked towards a room. In her home, a room she hadn't bothered to go in for a long time. She paused at the outside of the room, her hand freezing above the doorknob. He is not here. Nothing can hurt you. It's just a room. It's just a room. It's just a room. She twisted the doorknob to Itachi's room, running inside to his bookshelf before quickly glancing at the books within the shelf. Where is it? Where is it? Aha, right there. She grabbed the book before running out of her brother's run and slamming the door behind her. She didn't stop running until she reached the comfort of her living room. Breathing heavily, she placed the book on the table. It read, Konoha Shinobi Bingo Book. She opened the book, flipping through the pages for a specific page. She found it. It was amongst the first names in the end section. She gasped at the page. Before her eyes was a picture of Minato Namikaze. He was listed in the bingo book. Although his picture was X out, meaning he was no longer active, she could still see what she needed. His eyes were the same shade blue as Naruto, his face although more defined, and his jawline was stronger than Naruto. The resemblance was still uncanny. His hair was even the same style as Naruto. That left no doubt in her mind. Minato Namikaze was related to Naruto Uzumaki somehow. How? She read the information. Under Minato profile. Minato Namikaze, former 4th Hokage of Konoha. If you see this man and are not a shinobi of Konoha, it is advised you flee. Death will be your destination if you attempt to confront Minato Namikaze, best known for his use of the Rasengan and his exploits with the Flying Thunder God technique, gained him the moniker, Konoha's Yellow Flash. During the Third Shinobi World War, flee on-sight orders were given to enemy shinobi should they encounter him. He single-handedly wiped 1,000 Iowa nin, a feat that forced Onoki to accept a peace treaty, because of these two jutsu. Personal life. Minato is known to be calm and very intelligent. He is married to Kushina Uzumaki. No other information will be shared about the 4th Hokage. And that was it all that the bingo book was sharing about the 4th Hokage. Kushina Uzumaki. Uzumaki. Sasuke was brought out of her thoughts by a knock on the door. Sighing, she walked over to the door. Her mind was so wrapped up in her discovery she forgot what she was wearing. Or the lack of clothes for that matter. She opened the door with an annoyed scowl on her face. What do you want? What do you want, Kakashi? Sasuke spat at Kakashi. Settle down, Sasuke. I was just in the neighborhood when I thought I'd swing by. No reason to be so aggressive. At least this time, I was home when you trespassed into my clan's compound. Now, what do you want? She replied flatly. It's about Naruto, but if you wanted to talk at another time, I can just leave. Kakashi said, shrugging his shoulders as he turned to leave. Is it about the scrolls? Wait, what about Naruto? She couldn't contain her curiosity. She needed to see if her assumptions about Naruto being the son of Minato the 4th Hokage was correct. How about I come in? Kakashi was now turned to face her again. She watched his one eye flick to her exposed skin. She glared at him, turning to walk away quickly from his sight. He was getting an eyeful of her form. She left the door open. When she left the front door, she assumed he'd let himself in again. Damn pervert, he dares look at me. One of these days I'm going to get back at him for this. She practically ran to her room, shutting the door before quickly changing. She threw on her usual nightwear, some short spandex shorts that barely stopped just under her butt, and a hoodie. She paused as she went to exit the room, thinking about how Kakashi's lecherous gaze was on her a few minutes before. She went back and threw on a pair of sweatpants as well. She exited her room and found Kakashi sitting on her couch, her front door closed. He was half-heartedly reading his perverted book. He noticed her arrival. Well, even your nightwear is also very ambiguous. Do you have something against female clothing? Sasuke scowled at him. Well, I usually don't wear the pants, but I see that my sensei mind has been rotted by that perverted book. Well, I am your sensei, and I'd like us to have a friendly relationship. I am also male and human. He responded nonchalantly. Sasuke just narrowed his eyes at him in a deadly glare. So, He was checking me out. I'll defiantly kill or maim him. What did you want to tell me about Naruto? She didn't even try to keep the annoyance about her tone. She asked, trying to change the subject off her appearance. But Kakashi didn't seem to want to move forward. You could also consider growing out your hair. It may help people identify you as female more easily. Kakashi looked at Sasuke. She stood in front of him, arms crossed in front of her. She wore a black hoodie with the Uchiha clan symbol on the upper left. Speaking of if Sasuke's two teammates could see her now, the Jonin was sure that they'd faint. No one on the planet could confuse the Uchiha's gender now. Her were poking out from under the hoodie. Kakashi wasn't an expert in female sizes, like some other men, but he'd guessed that the Uchiha carried at least a pair of DD. He presumed that the only way those melons were concealable was because Sasuke wore multiple layers of bandages around her, that along with her typically loose-fitting shirt helped hide those things. She must wrap them tight, that has to hurt. Kakashi pondered. As if confirming his thoughts, he watched her shift under his gaze slightly, rubbing the sides of her to relieve some unseen pain. Sasuke wore black matching sweatpants. Her short black wild hair framed her face. He noticed it still appeared damp, so it wasn't as wild as it usually would be. Her unflawed skin and perfectly symmetrical and smooth face was twisted in a hateful glare. Obviously, she wasn't appreciating his observational gaze. He looked away from her to his book, deciding not to tempt the Uchiha into violence against him. I didn't invite you inside for fashion tips, but I don't care if ignorant people misidentify me. Their opinions do not move me, she said coldly. Even Naruto's. He watched her flinch, but her glare did not cease. Why are you here? She asked again, ignoring his question. Kakashi sighed. Tough cookie. Naruto mentioned that he wanted to tell you and Sakura about his parents. Sasuke dropped her glare and replaced it with an expressionless scowl. Sitting down on the far end of the couch, she brought her feet onto it as she turned to face Kakashi, sitting towards her sensei. What about them? Kakashi gave no visual clue as to what he was thinking, and she couldn't see his eye because he was looking at his book as he talked. I advised him against telling you two still. His parents had a lot of enemies. It would just put him in more danger if it was public knowledge. It has to be the fourth then. It was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, wasn't it? Naruto's father was the fourth Hokage, she spoke. Kakashi looked at her, his eye held a surprised look for a brief moment, but it was all she needed to confirm her suspicions. Why isn't anyone talking about that? Sasuke said it didn't make sense to her. Naruto's lineage would make him far more important in the eyes of the village. Being related to a leader of Konoha, a hidden village, would have equal if not more perks than being born of one of its noble clans. Naruto was treated like less than dirt by not only her classmates and others from the academy but also by the villagers. The villagers seemed to detest the boy. He was only treated like that because he had no one to help him defend himself. He was a nobody to everybody. If his lineage was exposed, the shame that she was sure most of the people would feel would bring them to death. I told Naruto it is ultimately up to him whether or not he shares his lineage with someone, although as his sensei, I advised against it, for his protection and theirs. I will not speak on his lineage with you because it is not my place to confirm or deny your suspicion. I'd take it up with Naruto, he said, shrugging before looking back at his book. Sasuke scoffed, rolling her eyes. Then why was he here? I can't believe Naruto is so humble. I'd think with his brashness he'd throw it in people's faces. She thought out loud. Well, Naruto didn't find out about his parents until recently. Kakashi stated. This surprised her. Why are they hiding so much? What else is the Hokage hiding from us? She just hummed a reply, thinking more about Naruto and his situation. A lot of things were still unclear, and Kakashi didn't really flat out confirm her suspicion, but still, she was 99% certain that Naruto's father was Minato. I was close with both of Naruto's parents. They helped me a lot when I was your age. Naruto means a lot to me, he is the closest thing to family I have. Kakashi stated matter-of-factly. Sasuke was surprised by this, looking at Kakashi with a look that probably matched her surprise. I smiled at her in return. He's like a younger brother. I'd like to build a relationship with each of you in such a way. Feel free to think of me as an older brother. Sasuke face twisted in anger at this. Like I'd want a brother that looks at me perversely, I don't want nor need any more brothers. She spat coldly. Kakashi sighed at this. Well, I am sorry. Like I said earlier, I am a healthy young man. I didn't mean any harm. You caught me off guard, so again, I apologize. I do mean it, though. I'd like all of us to get along. Even you and Sakura. I don't care, she replied, crossing her arms and looking away. Why were you so angry at Sakura? Sasuke ignored him. She wasn't in the mood for a lecture, and it's not as though she even understood her actions herself. Kakashi sighed seeing he wasn't getting anywhere with Sasuke with this approach. Okay, note to self. Don't mention brothers or her jealousy towards Sakura. You were all Naruto could talk about earlier. He really admires you, he said, trying another approach to get the Uchiha to open up. At this, he saw her look at him, her face flushed before she turned to look at her lap. In that moment, in this attire, Sasuke was, without a doubt, feminine. He also mentioned that you used to wear your hair longer. Sasuke's eyes flashed towards him again, her cheeks were stained pink, her shy-looking face didn't match the heated look she gave him. What does it matter to you? My hair is short now. I was curious why you would cut it. Because I let it grow after hearing Naruto liked long hair. And cut it because he wouldn't be around to see it, plus it got in my eyes. But she would never tell Kakashi that or Naruto for that matter. Sasuke narrowed her eyes. Why are you so curious? Can't I get to know my students? He replied. Most sensei don't show up in the middle of the night for chats like this, she shot back. Well, I am not like other sensei. He replied, his smile evident in his tone. She scoffed again, turning her head away from him. She ignored him for a few minutes. Kakashi seemed fine with it, just reading his book in the silence. I used to wear it longer, yes, but I decided to cut it. She wasn't sure why she was sharing this, but Kakashi pressing, then backing off when he felt her get too upset made her realize he was being genuine and had no other agenda. I am aware, I am more interested in why you cut it. Naruto said it was the day after the Genin exams. I find that interesting. Was it because you thought it'd make you a more efficient shinobi? Sasuke shook her head. No, I used to wear it in a similar style to Neji. I let it grow because I had motivation to do so at that time. After the Genin exam, I no longer had that motivation. And people still mistook me for a boy then, so there goes that genius idea of yours. She replied smugly. Kakashi seemed to think for a moment. So, I can assume her motivation was Naruto. She thought he failed and cut her hair in response. Cute. I know you said your mother liked your outfit. I'm sure it has sentimental value to you. So, I won't tell you to change it, and it is perfectly suitable attire for a shinobi. I can't help but feel if you changed it, you could find a way to use your womanly charms to make you a more effective kunoichi. She thought about this for a moment. In the academy they learned that kunoichi have certain advantages when it comes to certain missions than their male counterparts. Most of it had to do with seduction and trickery. Sasuke wasn't too fond of the idea of being a seductress, though, so she didn't favor those lessons, nor did she intend to use the methods taught to them. I don't see myself as a seductress. Kakashi laughed audibly at this. I didn't mean that. No, I couldn't see that either. Sasuke's face reddened in embarrassment, and she closed her fist in anger. Was he laughing at her because he didn't think she was attractive enough to seduce her targets? Gathering his bearing, Kakashi continued, I just meant that if you considered changing your attire, you could possibly catch some shinobi off guard. Shinobi, especially men, tend to let their guards down at kunoichi. Although unwise and East, it is still true. Trust me, you will need any and every advantage you get in this life, no matter how small. Plus, you may earn yourself so wanted attention. Kakashi glanced at the clock. He had already been here for 45 minutes. I'll leave you be now. Thanks for the chat, Sasuke-chan. Oh, by the way, Naruto also stated he liked your hair longer, better if that helps you make your decision. He teased, getting up and walking out. Sasuke tried to hit him with the door because of his remark as he left but missed, and the door slammed shut behind him. She could still hear his chuckle as he stepped away from her front porch. She locked the door and walked to her bedroom, thinking about all the things that she and Kakashi talked about. Getting into bed, She let her mind ponder as she felt fatigue slowly consuming her body. I guess I could let my hair grow back again, and maybe consider changing my attire. I wonder what Naruto would like, was her last thought before her consciousness gave way to sleep. 3 weeks later. It had been 3 weeks since Kakashi's late-night visit to Sasuke's house. In the 3 weeks since his visit, Sasuke and Naruto had managed to have dinner 4 more times. Sasuke had enjoyed spending time with Naruto but wouldn't admit it. They had changed locations too. The last 3 dinners they had together were at her clan compound, where she had the right to deny any unwanted guests. That guest was Sakura Haruno. If Sasuke could murder their teammate and get away with it, she would. Sakura had been a pest. She practically changed her entire personality when it came to Naruto now. Since his new wardrobe change, he had been getting a lot of attention from the pink-haired opportunist, and it annoyed and angered the Uchiha to no end. The reason she and Naruto now had their weekly dinners at her house was because of Sakura. A week after Kakashi came over, she and Naruto were discussing their next dinner plans, and Sakura overheard them. She was more persistent on joining them that time, and much to Sasuke's displeasure, Naruto was just as eager for her to join. Sakura had joined them at Naruto's place for dinner, and the Uchiha couldn't stop herself from being petty. She had refused to cook, throwing a half-hearted excuse of not being their personal chef as the reason for her quitting. It led to an interesting event, though. Naruto had managed to convince Sakura into trying to cook a meal for them. Whatever concoction the pink-haired banshee put together wasn't even remotely edible, and this satisfied the Uchiha greatly. They ended up ordering takeout instead. Sakura flirted a few times with Naruto, who was oblivious to her attempts. Sasuke was not, though, and it pissed her off to no end that the pink-haired nuisance was gaining an infatuation for Naruto. Although Kakashi wished for them to get along, Sasuke did not like Sakura. And all her reasons had something to do with Naruto. By the end of the dinner, Sasuke's mood was completely sour. The only good thing to come of it was her inviting Naruto to have their dinners at her house from then on. She then was able to not invite Sakura, and Sakura was wise enough not to ask. Naruto had been very tired for the past 3 weeks. He only mentioned it was due to training and the massive amounts of shadow clones Naruto was using because of Kakashi's guidance. He often would show up later in a hurry to be on time to their daily meetup spot. She had been worried he was overworking himself, but Kakashi wrote off her concerns, saying he'd be fine. The past 3 weeks had been brutal for all of them, training-wise. Kakashi was a real slave driver. Sakura woke up early every morning just to be run literally into the ground by Kakashi. About noon every day started Sasuke's turn to be trained into the dirt by their sensei. Kakashi mainly focused on her chakra reserves. He'd have her go through her most powerful jutsu over and over until she was drained dry. He mentioned that the best way to increase one's chakra reserves was to completely empty it and allow her body to naturally recover it, increasing her chakra capacity bit by bit. It was extremely taxing work. Naruto's training was more secretive. Even Sakura noticed this. Naruto trained mostly after they did a D rank assignment with Kakashi. She knew 2 things about Naruto's training from conversations with the blonde. 1, that it involved him attempting to pop different types of balls with his chakra. 2, that Naruto was writing and practicing his calligraphy all day, every day, whenever he got the opportunity. She didn't know what for exactly, but whatever it was, he was really excited about it. Speaking of Naruto, it's been 3 weeks since she developed her hypothesis that Naruto is the son of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze, but in those 3 weeks, Naruto hadn't brought it up, much to her annoyance, and she didn't want to be too intrusive and raise questions from the blonde that she didn't really want to answer. She was happy to know that Sakura also was still left in the dark as well. She knew more about Naruto than Sakura, at least still, and that oddly brought her comfort. She was now sitting at their usual meeting spot in Training Ground 7, waiting for the rest of her team to show up. They were told to meet here today at 8 a.m., and she had arrived early as usual. Sakura, as usual, was the next to arrive, wearing her usual red dress with spandex under it, her shinobi weapons pouch strapped to her right leg. When she approached Sasuke, she gave her a half-smile greeting her. "Morning, Sasuke-kun," she said, not really even looking at her. Sasuke ignored her as usual and didn't miss the annoyed look Sakura shot her way. Their relationship had definitely become more strained. Sakura used to fangirl over her bad. Now she seemed to have found a new interest, which was Naruto Uzumaki, much to her annoyance and displeasure. Sasuke hadn't changed her attire. It wasn't that she didn't plan to or that she wasn't going to. It was more that she seemed to be indecisive about what she should wear. Her new shinobi outfit had to still be suitable for her shinobi work but also comfortable and not ambiguous at all, as Kakashi likes to say. She looked at Sakura again, taking in the girl's attire. Naruto seems to still like Sakura. Maybe he likes girls in a dress. Part of her was annoyed she was even thinking like this. None of this would matter in her fight with Itachi, but even she could see the wisdom in Kakashi's words about shinobi getting any advantage they could in a fight. She lied to herself and said that was the main reason she was considering the change. She just found herself at a loss for style. She had worn the same clothes for years now, and who knew that changing your attire was so difficult? She needed advice but definitely was not going to ask Kakashi or Sakura for some. She'd just have to wait a little longer for inspiration. She also had started growing her hair. Her hair grew quickly. Just 3 weeks ago it didn't even reach her shoulders, stopping at her mid-neck. Now her hair was at her shoulders, still slightly shorter than Sakura's, but a few inches longer than what it was just 3 weeks ago. Naruto showed up to their meeting spot a few minutes after Sakura. He greeted both of them with a friendly smile before taking a seat next to Sasuke. They sat in silence for a few minutes before Kakashi showed up, surprisingly close to being on time. Dang, Kakashi-sensei, I thought we'd be waiting for at least another 45 minutes. Naruto told their one-eyed Jonin instructor as he walked into the training field, joining them. I could always just go somewhere else, Naruto. Kakashi joked. No, all three of his students said at the same time, none of them wanting to wait on their usually late sensei any longer than necessary. Alright, let's go, you three. The three genin got up, following their instructor to the Hokage Tower for another round of missions. Sasuke was internally grimacing at the thought of possibly having to find that damn cat Tora again. If that was their mission again, she might just make some mittens out of that cat. They arrived at the Hokage Tower, but the mission clerks at the first floor were all swamped with teams trying to get mission assignments. Kakashi sighed before leading his team up the stairs into the third floor, where the Hokage and a group of experienced mission clerks were located in a room, usually meant for C-rank mission assignments and higher. Without knocking or with any care in the world, Kakashi led his team of genin into the room. Sasuke had to keep herself from facepalming at her Jonin instructor's rudeness. They walked into the room and were greeted by the sight of the Hokage smoking on his pipe, a stack of papers in front of him. He smiled at the three of them, his smile faltering slightly at looking at Naruto. Sasuke turned to see Naruto giving the Hokage a heated glare before turning to stare at the wall instead of looking at the Hokage. It was obvious that Naruto had some sort of animosity towards the village leader. For what? Sasuke had no idea. Next to the Hokage were some experienced clerks that the Uchiha wasn't familiar with, besides Iruka-sensei. The Hokage spoke first, breaking the silence. Hello, Kakashi. What do I owe the pleasure of your visit? Me and my team want a mission. Kakashi said boredly, whipping out his book. He had his other hand in his pocket, and his posture screamed lazy. The Hokage sighed. This room is for mission assignments, yes, but only C-ranked and above missions are assigned here. You know this, Kakashi. Kakashi just shrugged at this, and Naruto's head whipped towards the Hokage so fast, she thought it'd fly off. I want one, Naruto said, shouting like an excited toddler. The Hokage took a stress-relieving inhale of his pipe. Iruka was the first to respond to Naruto's outburst. Naruto, show some respect. You are in front of the Hokage and very experienced Chunin. Don't be so brash. But Iruka-sensei, I want a C-ranked assignment so bad. If I have to wash one more window or capture that damn cat one more time, I may just murder it. Naruto said exasperatedly. Sasuke saw Kakashi's eyes twinkle behind his book. He brought us here, knowing that Naruto would complain about the D-ranked assignments. Sasuke thought to herself. Kakashi, What do you think? Is your team truly ready for more than D-ranked assignments? The Hokage asked, eyeing the Jonin. She watched Kakashi shrug. I don't know, but I do know that their teamwork has improved slightly. You never really know until you try. Kakashi responded flatly. I can't believe you are just ready to throw a brand new Genin team into the fire like that, Kakashi. I'd expect you to be more responsible as a Jonin instructor, Iruka shot back. Kakashi just ignored the Chunin and continued reading, which Sasuke noted annoyed her former sensei greatly. The Hokage seemed to be thinking about what Kakashi had said. He turned his attention to Sakura, asking her. What do you think, Sakura Haruno? Would you like to take on a C-ranked assignment? He asked kindly. Yes, Hokage-sama. I agree with Naruto. I also would like to attempt something more challenging. The Hokage nodded before turning to her. And you, Sasuke Uchiha, how do you feel? I would like a higher ranking assignment as well. She had to admit that she too was tired of the chores they were being assigned. Okay. Well, I think I have just the mission. It is an easy bodyguard assignment that should provide your team with the change of pace they are looking for. The Hokage spoke to Kakashi. At this, their sensei had put his book away, signifying that the Hokage had his full attention. But Hokage-sama, are you sure? This Genin team is only 3 weeks old. It is far too soon for them to be given C-ranked assignments yet. Iruka argued, worried about his former students. Kakashi is one of the best Jonin in the village, and this assignment will be far below his capabilities. I'm sure everything will be fine. Kakashi, take this. The Hokage spoke, handing Kakashi the mission profile. Kakashi took it before reading it over thoroughly. Your mission will be to escort the client, a bridge builder, to the land of waves. He isn't expecting any trouble outside of bandits and common thieves. The mission should take you about a month to complete, as you are to guard the builder until the bridge is complete. He just arrived today and is in a hurry to get back and complete the bridge. You have 3 hours to go and pack for the trip. I will have the client notified and meet you at the gates. Understood. Understood. The 4 of them replied in unison. Kakashi turned to the 3 of them. Naruto was practically shaking in his pants at the excitement. Sakura seemed a bit nervous. Sasuke was feeling the same excitement Naruto felt but was hiding her emotions the best out of the 3. I want you 3 to go home and pack all the supplies you will need for the journey. Make sure you pack at least 3 sets of clothes and enough food for 2 weeks. I will let you all decide what else you should bring. Meet me at the gate no more than 2 hours from now, got it? Yes, sensei. They said in unison. Dismissed. The 3 took off from there and out of the tower to pack for their upcoming mission. Exactly 3 hours later, Kakashi showed up at the gates with annoyed students looking at him. They had thought Kakashi gave them 2 hours because he wanted to speak to them about something before the client arrived. Yet, he didn't show up until an hour after his time hack, which he gave to the 3. Sasuke was glaring daggers at the lazy Jonin who arrived just barely on time to the 3 hours given by the Hokage. Well, I see you all made it on time. Good. Where is the builder? He asked, ignoring the glares he received from the 3. I don't know, sensei. He hasn't arrived yet, Sakura replied. Interesting, Kakashi said before whipping out his book and leaning against the wall next to the village's open gate. They didn't have to wait too long for the client to arrive. When he did, Sasuke glanced at him through the side of her eye. He was an older man with a bit of a potbelly, wore glasses, and had a traveling pack on his back. He also had a sake bottle in his hand, which caused Sasuke to roll her eyes. Great, we're escorting a drunk. Upon joining their group, he spoke, I assume you guys are Team 7 led by Kakashi. Kakashi, hearing this, put his book away and addressed the man, yes, we are Team 7. I am Kakashi Hatake, the leader of Team 7. These are my genin. Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki. It is our pleasure to be escorting you today. The man took a long sip from his sake bottle, eyeing Kakashi, then Sakura, then her, and lastly Naruto. His eyes were scrutinizing them, and it annoyed her to no end. I pay for a C-ranked mission, and they send children to protect me. I guess my money isn't good enough for this village, the man said roughly. Kakashi didn't let the comment bother him visibly as he replied, me and my students are more than capable of completing this assignment. You can place your trust in us. The man just grunted a reply, I am Tazuna. I assume you all are ready to go. Kakashi just nodded his head in reply before turning to face them. As of now, we are on assignment. Remember what I said during your follow-on Genin examination. We will assume a diamond formation around Tazuna until we reach the land of waves. I will be the point man, Naruto and Sakura, you will take Tazuna's flanks, and Sasuke, you bring up the rear. Let's move out, Kakashi said, leading the group out of the gates of Konoha. The genin wordlessly took their positions, putting Tazuna securely in the middle of the four before following their sensei. What did he mean by, remember what I said during our follow-up examination? Naruto asked Sakura a few minutes after they departed the gates. Sakura gave Naruto a look that said, really, Naruto, before replying, I think he was referencing his first tip for us as our sensei about never dropping our guards on assignment. What do you think, Sasuke? Sakura said, turning her head to look at her. That is most likely what he was referring to, she said in agreement. Oh, yeah, right. I forgot about that, Naruto said, earning him an eye roll from both his female teammates. They walked for an hour or two with Naruto, making small talk with the rest of the group, seemingly unsatisfied with their entertainment. He whipped out a scroll and pen before starting his calligraphy practice as they walked. Sasuke knew what he was doing, having seen him practice this multiple times in the past 3 weeks, but couldn't help teasing the boy. What are you doing, Pipsqueak? Writing in your diary, she teased from her position at the back of the formation. Naruto just turned his head to glare at her playfully. No, I am practicing my calligraphy. She smirked at him in response but couldn't rebuttal before the annoying Banshee interrupted. I've been meaning to ask you about that, Naruto. Since when have you been practicing calligraphy? Sakura asked. Kakashi-sensei said it'd be easier for me to learn Fuinjutsu if I had neat calligraphy, Naruto said absent-mindedly. Sakura thought for a moment, I didn't know you were learning Fuinjutsu, Naruto. That's pretty impressive, Naruto, she said, offering him a friendlier smile than Sasuke appreciated. Yeah, it's cool, but it's pretty difficult for me right now. I can only create basic storage scrolls and a few other useful things for now. It's nowhere near as impressive as my new super awesome jutsu, though. Naruto said excitedly. This caught Sasuke's attention. It must have been the jutsu he was learning through him popping balls with his chakra. So, you finally managed to learn it, Naruto? She asked. Yeah, bastard, and when you finally see me use it, you will be forced to admit how awesome I am. He said, smiling smugly at her. She just smirked in response. Like I'd ever admit such a foolish and blatant lie like that, she replied. Naruto narrowed his eyes at her in response, and she had to turn her head away from him in order not to chuckle at his response to her teasing. Sakura just observed the two. Sasuke had been more and more mean to her, and he would always come to Naruto's defense no matter what. She noticed in these past 3 weeks. Sakura stopped insulting Naruto after almost getting punched in the face by her crush for insulting him. The two had grown obviously closer so quickly it surprised her. She felt left out, honestly. She thought that Sasuke would have hated being on a team with someone like Naruto, but it seemed to her that Sasuke was more annoyed by her than Naruto most of the time, which she still couldn't wrap her head around. Sasuke never expressed too much interest in Naruto or anyone back at the academy, but now it seemed that Naruto was definitely the boy's favorite teammate. Sasuke's sudden kindness towards Naruto made Sakura take a step back and reevaluate her opinion of the blonde. When she did that, she noticed that Naruto was extremely hardworking, honest, and caring. Even though he was not the smartest boy, he had a dedication and a hardworking nature that she believed was the reason Sasuke liked Naruto, because Sasuke himself had always been a hard worker, even at the academy. He trained hard, and that motivated her to try her best in the academy in order to get his attention. Couple that with how they both had a hard childhood, like Kakashi-sensei mentioned, it made more and more sense what Sasuke saw in the blonde. Have you ever been outside the village before, Naruto-kun? Sakura asked, aiming to join the conversation and perhaps bond a little with Naruto. No, I haven't. What about you? Naruto asked her. not looking up from his scroll. No, I haven't either. It's kind of nerve-wracking leaving the protection of the village. What about you, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, turning towards Sasuke. Sasuke just shook her head in reply, not bothering to answer verbally. Kakashi spoke up, aiming to reassure them, you all don't have to worry about anything. There is no shinobi combat in C-rank missions. The most you all will have to concern yourselves with would be bandits and thieves. That will be no problem for you three. Sakura was relieved by this knowledge, and it brought her a sense of comfort. How long till we reach the land of waves, sensei? She asked. It should take about 2 to 3 days on foot at this pace. Kakashi answered. She nodded her head, mentally preparing herself for the journey ahead. I am down for a simple introduction mission like this. Sakura thought. They walked for another 3 to 4 hours before Sasuke noticed something strange. They were walking on a dirt road, and she saw ahead of them 2 puddles of water, but the rest of the road was completely dry, and it hadn't rained in Konoha for weeks. So why were those puddles there? She looked at her 2 teammates. Naruto was too engrossed in his calligraphy practice to notice it. Sakura, although not distracted by anything and properly scanning her sectors, didn't seem to notice the puddle as they passed. Kakashi had turned his head down to glance at the puddle but didn't give her any indication that the puddle was indeed out of place. Maybe I am trying too hard and looking too deep into it, she thought as she passed the puddles, giving it one more look before turning her head away. Right as she did this, she failed to notice the puddles move and 2 figures form from them. She barely even saw the 2 flashes from each peripheral as 2 shinobi moved at high speeds past her and flanked the group's sides, headed for Kakashi. Before she could shout a warning, she looked on in horror as the 2 shinobi with what appeared to be linked chains stabbed their Jonin-sensei in each side with their kunai. She watched as the blood fell from Kakashi's wounds, and he let out a painful gasp before falling to the ground. The 2 shinobi turned, looking at them menacingly. 1 down, 3 more to go. Now that they were facing them, Sasuke got a good look at the 2. They both wore similar clothing. One had a brown shirt with his shinobi tool belt wrapped around his long shirt at his waist. His headband was one of a Kurigakure shinobi. His left arm held a gauntlet with a chain attached to the other shinobi, who wore a similar outfit except he donned a black cape over his shoulders. And his wrist gauntlet was on his right hand. They took off in a blur towards Naruto, who she looked at, and he seemed frozen in place, his eyes glancing from Kakashi's fallen body to the 2 shinobi charging at him. Idiot. Move. Sasuke knew that if Naruto didn't move away from their attack, he was as good as dead. Why wasn't he moving? The 2 shinobi were fast, but Kakashi-sensei was faster. Naruto should be able to keep up with their movements. She panicked and moved before thinking through her actions. If the 2 of them were backed up by more shinobi, then her leaving her team's rear undefended would cost them dearly. But her body moved faster than her mind. Sharingan activated, she could see everything clearly as if the 2 shinobi were moving in slow motion to her. Sakura had quickly placed herself between the attackers and Tazuna, who was looking rightfully scared. Sasuke knew that if these 2 could take Kakashi-sensei out so quickly, she didn't stand a chance. Even knowing this, she couldn't stop her body from moving to help Naruto. She managed to intercept them right before they made contact with Naruto. She tossed her kunai at their linked chains so hard that the force of her throw sent them flying back, and the connected chain pinned them to a nearby tree. She positioned herself between the attackers and Naruto, who was still frozen in fear. She felt so annoyed at Naruto at that moment, her words came out harsher than what she had intended. She had meant it as a joke, but it came out way crueler than she intended. What? Naruto, you scared? Don't tell me you're nothing but a scaredy cat. She spat, looking over her shoulder at him. Now, actually being able to see his face, Sasuke could confirm that Naruto's expression was definitely one of fear. At hearing her words, though, his face twisted into one of shame, guilt, and sadness. She internally sighed, not intending for her words to be so offensive to the boy but didn't have time to think about it. Her opponents had detached themselves from their connected chains and were rushing at her from either side. Damn it, I must protect those 2, she thought. But in the back of her mind, she knew that she didn't stand a chance. That she would die here, but if she died, she'd go out swinging and hopefully give Naruto and Sakura a chance to escape and survive. She was surprised when the two split up. One passed her by, headed for Sakura and Tazuna, and the other headed for Naruto. Damn it, they are going for the bridge builder, she thought, but she knew that with Naruto's condition, if she didn't help him, he was as good as dead. That being said, Sakura had way worse chances of surviving in a one-on-one confrontation than Naruto. Who do I help? She didn't think she would be able to cut them both off in time. She couldn't risk throwing a kunai either because Sakura might be able to dodge, but that would put the bridge builder in a bad position. She ran as fast as she could, trying her best to intercept the one headed for Sakura and the bridge builder. She was putting her faith in Naruto's ability to defend himself. All she had to do was incapacitate one of them quickly, then help Naruto immediately. I'm going to be too late. This thought made her heart sink, as she realized that she was in a lose-lose situation. She wouldn't be able to save either of them. They are both going to die. Out of nowhere, a flash of movement came into her vision. She recognized the white hair of her sensei immediately, and before the other two shinobi could react, Kakashi single-handedly grabbed each of them in one arm, smashing their heads together, knocking them out before he held onto their unconscious bodies, one in each arm. He smiled at the three of them as Sasuke came to a sliding stop in front of them, and just as suddenly as the battle started, it was over. Good job, Sasuke. Great reactions, even better decision-making. It seemed that you were onto these two from the start, Kakashi said to her. She just huffed and turned away, but she was happy at the compliment. When she turned her head, her happiness faltered at the shocked and sad look on Naruto's face. Sadness really didn't belong on the blonde's usual happy and upbeat face. Sakura, also good decision-making. Immediately going to protect the client, very sound, as I have always known your basics are solid. Way to not get wrapped up in the heat of things around you and putting the mission first, Kakashi said, earning him a giggle of appreciation from Sakura. Kakashi turned to Naruto, who still hadn't moved from his spot. He was staring at Kakashi with a slightly hopeful look, but everything about his posture screamed that he knew he was useless to his team just then. Naruto, you performed the worst. I'm disappointed in you, frankly. Even if they manage to catch you off guard, and even if one of your teammates falls, never forget your assignment and, most importantly, know that inaction will lead to you and your teammates' deaths. I'm sorry for not helping you before you got injured, though. You should be careful. The demon brothers of the mist are known to use poison. Kakashi said sternly, eyes narrowing at Naruto, who had his eyes cast down in shame. Sasuke felt bad for Naruto at that moment but didn't know what to say to make him feel better. She noticed that Naruto's hand was bleeding. He had been injured in the altercation. Damn it, I failed to protect them. I'm still too weak. I'm so happy you're alive, Kakashi-sensei. Sakura said with tears rolling down her eyes. Kakashi just smiled at her. I am okay, Sakura. Sorry I took a little longer to help you all, but I wanted to see who these two were targeting, he said, pausing to look at Tazuna. Tazuna was standing there in shock. A lot of the events happened faster than his eyes could track. I'm grateful to be alive. He had to admit that both the Uchiha and his sensei were good. Even Sakura had moved to defend him. His eyes moved to the blonde, who was just staring at his teammates with a distant look in his eyes. I was useless. I was too afraid to move. I couldn't do anything. His eyes drifted to Sasuke, who had his hands in his pockets casually having a conversation with Kakashi and Sakura as if nothing had happened. At feeling his gaze, Sasuke glanced at him and smirked before turning to help Kakashi tie the two shinobi to a nearby tree. That damn smirk. That bastard thinks he's better than me. Wasn't he scared? His first battle just like mine, and he showed no fear at all. He saved me like it was nothing and didn't even get his clothes dirty. Sasuke noticed Naruto staring at her. She turned to him with a small smirk pulling at her lips. He looked deep in thought, so she figured she'd pull him out of it the best way she knew how. Hey, Naruto, she said to him. His eyes seemed to focus on her, so she knew she had his attention. Are you hurt? Scaredy cat, she teased. Just like earlier, she meant it as a joke, a little barb like they always did. This time she wasn't in the heat of the moment either, so it came out more neutral and playful, more like she meant it earlier. Naruto didn't pick up on her tone, though, like he usually did. She saw him clench his hands, and his face twisted in anger and rage, his body convulsed with the intensity of his emotions. What he did next surprised everyone. She watched him whip out a kunai before stabbing it in his cut. Looking at her with a sort of manic crazed look she had never seen on him before, he shouted at her. I swear by this wound and the blood that falls from it. I, Uzumaki Naruto, will never be afraid to move and help defend my comrades again. And I never go back on my word because that's my ninja way. Sakura, Sasuke, and Tazuna looked at the boy in shock. Sasuke was shocked by the action, she turned her head to hide her smirk. Wow, that was actually pretty cool. Sakura was looking at him impressed. That was pretty cool, Naruto. Kakashi was the first one to speak after Naruto's declaration. Yeah, that's pretty motivating and all, Naruto, and you may have helped stop the poison from spreading, but now you'll be at risk of dying due to blood loss if no one tends to that. Kakashi teased the boy. Naruto screamed, aha, wait, I'm too young to die. Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna immediately sweat dropped. Way to ruin the moment. They all thought at the same time. Sakura, do you have bandages? Kakashi asked her, and the pink-haired girl nodded in response. Good, patch Naruto up real quick. He replied, and the girl moved to Naruto to bandage his hand. Kakashi noted that when he looked at Naruto's wound, the Nine Tails was already in the process of healing the boy, but his teammates weren't aware of the monster he held inside, and it was better to be safe than sorry. Turning his attention to Tazuna, he said, we need to talk. The bridge builder was noticeably tense at this. The demon brothers of the mist are two missing nin from Kurigakure. They are in our bingo book as wanted criminals. If we knew that shinobi of their caliber were hunting you, this mission would be a B rank mission at the lowest, more than likely an A- ranked mission, Kakashi said, gauging the man's reaction, which he noted was not surprised. And based on your reaction, you knew shinobi were hunting you, yet you lied to the Hokage and your mission clerk. Why? Tazuna sighed. He was busted and might as well come clean. The bridge I am building is important. That's why. Not more important than my team. You have 30 seconds to tell me, or I will leave you here with those two. Kakashi said, pointing at the unconscious Kurigakure shinobi. Okay, the bridge I am building is important to the economy of the Land of Waves. My village is small, so we do not have shinobi or anyone for that matter protecting us. A man named Gato is a ruthless businessman who has tons of mercenaries and shinobi mercenaries backing him. They have used their strength to bully our village for years. We are forced to listen and abide by them because Gato's business is responsible for all the trade imports and exports. We can't get basic things such as food without his approval. That is no way to live, so we saved our money for years in order to build a bridge that would allow us to not rely on Gato so heavily. He is out to kill me because of this, and we could only afford the cost of a C-ranked mission. I was hoping to get an experienced Chunin group, but here we are. Kakashi stopped to think about what the man said. Sakura and Naruto had joined him and Sasuke in questioning the bridge builder. Sakura had a pitiful look on her face, Naruto seemed itching for a fight, and Sasuke was hard to read at best. She looked half-heartedly interested in the man's story. You lying has put my team at risk. I don't care about the Land of Waves enough to risk my team's lives, Kakashi said flatly. But we had to. I am sorry, the man said, begging for forgiveness. You should have thought about that before. Kakashi was cut off by Naruto. I say we help him. Naruto shouted. Kakashi looked at Naruto questioningly. Are you sure, Naruto? We may come face to face with more threats. You may not get out of the next encounter with just a flesh wound. Your lives are at risk. Naruto fixed him with a determined stare. He noticed Naruto's gaze shifted to Sasuke briefly before returning to his. I don't care. We can't just leave him to die. I want to help, no matter the cost. Kakashi sighed before turning to look at Sakura. And what do you think? He asked her. Well, I understand it's bad that Tazuna lied to us and the Hokage, but I understand his reason, and I can't blame him. As long as you're with us, Kakashi-sensei, I believe everything will be okay, she said, offering a weak, unconfident smile. Kakashi nodded, turning to his last student. What about you, Sasuke? She just shrugged at him in response. I don't really care what happens to him, but I do want to see this through to the end. Kakashi thought for a moment or two more before turning to Tazuna. Well, today's your lucky day. You better make sure you thank my students because they likely just saved your life. Kakashi said, turning to walk away. We will continue the mission. Assume the diamond formation around the client. We are a few hours away from the halfway point, where we will stop to rest for the night. He bit his thumb and placed it on the ground, summoning one of his dog summons. He heard the cool gasp from Naruto at this. Ignoring his student's surprise, he wrote a note to the Hokage, updating him on the information he received and telling the Hokage the location of the demon brothers. He gave it to his ninja hound and watched as the dog took off back towards the village. They walked for about 5 more hours and managed to reach the halfway point right before sunset. He had his students set up camp and told Sasuke and Naruto to go into the woods looking for firewood and food. He knew a pond was nearby that they hopefully could get some fish from. An hour later, Naruto and Sasuke came back with something much bigger than a fish, a doe. Great find, Kakashi said to the two. Naruto had a huge grin on his face, whereas Sasuke had a confident smirk. Alright, you three, skin the deer and prepare it for supper. Naruto looked at him confused before glancing at Sasuke. She noticed his confused look and facepalmed. Let me guess, you don't know how to skin a deer? She asked him. Naruto shook his head in response, and Kakashi almost chuckled when Sasuke called Naruto useless. Sakura went and joined Sasuke and Naruto in skinning the deer. Apparently, she didn't know how to do it either. Their shouts and arguments that ensued brought a smile to his face. An hour later, the group had eaten dinner, and Naruto had impressed his 2 female teammates by storing the rest of the cooked deer away in a sealing scroll. I didn't know you were able to seal away such a large item. Sakura said, impressed. Sasuke was also looking at the blonde curiously. She also was under the impression that only smaller items could be stored away like that. Usually, you're right, Sakura-chan, but I'm pretty cool since I have a lot of chakra. Kakashi-sensei said I'd be able to store a lot of things most shinobi couldn't do. Naruto replied with a smug look on his face. Sasuke rolled her eyes at the two's interaction, crossing her arms as they spoke to each other. Kakashi checked his wristwatch. It was about time they headed to bed. Alright, let's all get some sleep. Sasuke, you take the first watch, then Sakura, then Naruto, 3 hours watch between you three. Remember, we are on assignment and have already been attacked once. Douse the fire and keep on alert. Good night. He got up and entered his tent. Sasuke watched as Naruto and Sakura listened to their sensei, putting out the fire before telling her a brief good night before disappearing into their respective tents. She looked around for a good vantage point, finding a suitable climbable tree. She climbed up a few feet so she had a better line of sight on potential attackers. She pulled out one of her kunai and a sharpening kit, as she absent-mindedly sharpened her ninja tools. She didn't know how much time passed, but she had to guess it was an hour and a half before she saw rustling in Naruto's tent. She watched as he slipped out of it, looking around their campsite for something, then started scanning the trees, till his eyes locked in on hers. He gave her a big smile before jogging over to her tree. Before she could ask what he was doing, he climbed the tree not using his hands like her. He walked right up the side of the tree, stopping on a branch to her right at the same height. Hey Sasuke, I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd join you. How did you do that? She asked him, slightly amazed. Huh? Do what? Naruto asked her, confused. You just climbed the tree without using your hands. How did you do that? Naruto shot her a sheepish grin at this. You can't climb trees using your chakra, Sasuke. Sasuke shook her head, and Naruto laughed at her, which earned him a heated glare from Sasuke. But his laughter seemed to make him laugh harder. I never thought the day would come where I knew something you didn't. Kakashi-sensei taught me this like 2 weeks ago. It helped me master my new jutsu. You can climb trees with your chakra if you flow it to your feet. It gets tricky, though, because it has to be perfectly even in order to stick. Too much chakra, and you will fly right off. Too little, and you won't stick and will crash to the ground. Sasuke listened intently. She would have to get Kakashi-sensei to teach her that immediately. No way was she going to let Naruto be better than her at anything. They fell into a comfortable silence, just listening to the sounds of the night before Naruto broke the silence again. You know, you were pretty cool today, Naruto said, not looking at her. Sasuke looked to her right at Naruto, who had a distant look on his face. It must be nice to be good at everything all the time, he said sadly. Sasuke's face softened at this. She offered him an excuse. Well, I was lucky enough to be raised in a clan of shinobi. It's in my blood, unlike you, Pipsqueak, she teased. Naruto rolled his eyes at her before his face became sad once again. What is it like, having parents, I mean? Sasuke froze momentarily at his question. Painful memories of her childhood came crashing into her mind. She pushed it away, though, and tried to just focus on Naruto's question. It can be frustrating. They have lots of rules and always make decisions for you, and you always feel as though you will never accomplish enough to make them proud. But at the same time, you know that they will always be there for you no matter what, that they have your back and wish nothing but the best for you, she said softly. Naruto was looking at her as though he was imagining what she was saying. He seemed unable to truly comprehend it, and it made her sad to know he would never really understand. Sighing, she said, it's probably a foreign concept to you, never having known your parents, but parents are like your biggest support system, but also your biggest hindrance because they worry about you constantly. They fell into silence at this. Sasuke started to reminisce about all the fun she had as a kid with her mother and father. She almost didn't hear Naruto when he spoke next. I have something I want to tell you, he said, looking at her. When she turned to face him, she was surprised by the seriousness in his eyes. She swallowed deeply as she held his gaze, admiring how handsome his eyes and face were in the moonlight. I found out who my parents were 3 weeks ago, he said, not breaking eye contact. Is this it? Will he finally tell me? How? She asked. This she actually didn't know, so she wouldn't have to pretend to be surprised. Before our first mission, I went to visit the Hokage. He told me who my parents were. They were really important people. Kakashi-sensei has advised me not to tell anyone or too many people because they could have enemies all over. It could be dangerous to know who they are, he said softly, still holding eye contact, gauging her reaction. Is he seeing if I'd be too scared to know? As if, nothing will scare me away from you, Naruto. She blushed at her own thoughts, looking away briefly before realizing if Naruto was testing her, she had to maintain this eye contact. So she brought a determined look to her face before returning her eyes to Naruto, hoping it was dark enough to hide her blush. If Naruto noticed her strange behavior, he didn't say anything, just stared at her. Who were they? She asked tenderly, her care obvious in her tone. Naruto took a deep breath before saying, I'm not lying, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't laugh, but the Hokage told me. My father was the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and my mother was his wife, Kushina Uzumaki. He said, pausing to gauge Sasuke's reaction. Naruto couldn't sleep. His mind was wrapped around his first combat scenario he had earlier, and Kakashi and Sasuke's words. How could he bring himself to say he was the 4th Hokage's son? The 4th Hokage was held as a hero. He was popular amongst every shinobi, young and old. They would expect his son to be great, not some coward who had a demon sealed within him. He had to talk to someone about this, and the only people he felt close enough to talk about this with were Kakashi, Iruka, the Hokage, and Sasuke. He wasn't speaking to the Hokage still, angry about him holding on to his secret for so long. Iruka wasn't here. He wasn't trying to wake up Kakashi-sensei just to talk, so that left Sasuke. Although the boy would still be his first choice anyway, Sasuke, although was a dickhead, they had grown to have a sort of understanding that Naruto didn't think was possible 3 weeks ago. Sasuke's face remained neutral. She didn't seem to disbelieve Naruto, but she also didn't look surprised either, which Naruto found odd. He half expected the Uchiha to try and tease him for saying such a thing, that's why he asked for him not to, but his reaction was calm, which was unexpected. How does that make you feel, knowing who your mother and father were? Sasuke asked. Naruto shrugged. At first, it made me really happy. I was angry too, at the Hokage for hiding it from me for so long. Naruto said, his voice trembling slightly as he held back tears. Sasuke, if she noticed, didn't say anything and just sat, waiting patiently for him to continue. Taking a steadying breath, Naruto continued, I'm still happy, you know. Now I know that I wasn't abandoned and that my parents loved me. They just didn't survive the Nine Tails attack. But after today, I question if I'm really their child. My father was a genius, everyone knew that. Reading the scrolls he left behind for me, I can tell. He talks about things that make me have to get a book to even begin to understand. My mother was the same way, she was so good at everything like you. Then there's me, a failure who flunked the Shinobi Academy 3 times, then today, I was too scared to move. What would they say if they heard about this? I should be ashamed. I am ashamed of myself. He said, voice shaking as a few tears fell from his eyes. He had to sniff in order to keep the snot from falling down his face. He saw something white in front of his face in Sasuke's hands. She was handing him a tissue. Naruto took it, wiping his face and nose, but refused to meet Sasuke's gaze. He felt her looking at him, but he couldn't find the bravery in his heart to look at her back. They were silent for a while before Sasuke spoke. I think they would be proud of you, she said softly. Naruto's eyes shot up at this as he looked at Sasuke, who was giving him a smile. Naruto's heart raced as it always did, seeing Sasuke's genuine smile. You have been through a lot. Only someone as strong as you can go through the things you have and come out of it with a smile on your face. Even if you're faking it, it still takes courage to when you painted the Hokage monument the day of the Genin exam. She asked him. He nodded his head. Well, that day was a bad day for me. I often have nightmares about what my brother did to me and my clan. That night I had a terrible one and had been up all night. I cried, until I couldn't shed tears anymore, then I just sat there wanting to cry but not having the strength, wanting to fix things but not knowing how. I was sad, but you know who made me feel better? She asked him. He just shook his head. It was you, Naruto. As I walked to class, I saw what you did. I also saw the smile on your face as you were being chased by Iruka-sensei and the other shinobi. You made me smile and laugh that day. You have made me smile before, but that day I thought nothing could make me feel better, but you did. You gave me the strength I needed to smile because, if you had the strength to still smile after never knowing kindness and the love of family, then I knew I too would be able to smile again, and I was right. You have made me smile a lot more since then. You are strong and brave, Naruto, don't forget it, she said, smiling at him. She didn't know what he was thinking, but his face flashed through a series of emotions before he smiled at her brightly. His smile still made her heart skip a beat and her blood rush. It was his real smile, not the fake one that he often gave people, but this smile could warm her heart in the coldest of winters. Thanks, Sasuke, he said with a smirk. Don't mention it. Before she could finish, he spoke. Really, don't. I know, wouldn't want to ruin your reputation by letting people know you actually can be nice, huh? Sasuke blushed because he finished her sentence, before giving him a playful punch on the arm. Be careful, Naruto, or I'll punch you off this tree. She joked. They both laughed, but their laughter was interrupted by Sakura. Sasuke, Naruto, what are you two doing? She asked. Sasuke decided to ignore her as she hopped out of the tree, followed by Naruto. Hey, Sakura, I was just keeping Sasuke company. Time for your night watch? Naruto asked, his demeanor a complete 180 from a few moments ago. Yeah, Sakura said, looking back and forth between the two. Sasuke just rolled her eyes, she could see the wheels turning in Sakura's mind. She decided